Riot. 134 AC. Third-person POV. Theon Stark, with half his wolf pack at his back and a determined contingent of loyal gold cloaks, moved with grim purpose towards Cobbler's Square. The roar of the mob grew louder with every step, a monstrous, unified cry against his queen and her dragons. He could already make out the gaunt figure of the shepherd, standing atop a makeshift podium, his arms flailing, his voice a guttural sermon of hatred. The narrow streets, usually bustling with merchants and common folk, were now choked with an angry, volatile crowd. Fear, suspicion, and decades of ingrained dogma had twisted their faces into masks of fury. They were not just a mob. They were a dangerous, fervent mass, ready to believe the worst. Theon pushed through the throng, his path deliberately direct, aimed squarely at the shepherd. His presence, the dark armor of the wolf pack, the cold glint of their northern steel, was an immediate challenge to the mob's rising fervor. A few brave, or perhaps foolish, individuals tried to stop them. They raised hands, shouted protests, or even lunged, fueled by the shepherd's words. Theon's voice, though not a shout, carried with chilling authority. "Any who come between us and the shepherd will be killed," he commanded, his words slicing through the din. The people, however, did not listen. They were too deeply immersed in their righteous rage, too emboldened by their numbers, too convinced by the shepherd's rhetoric. They pressed in, a wall of bodies, their eyes alight with fanaticism. Theon's expression hardened, his patience gone. This was not a negotiation. This was a direct assault on the crown's authority, orchestrated by unseen hands. He turned to his wolf pack, his gaze sweeping over their disciplined ranks. "Anyone who comes between the shepherd and us will be killed," he repeated, his voice now colder, sharper, a command that permitted no quarter. The words hung in the air for a breath, and then the wolf pack moved. They moved not with wild abandon, but with brutal, efficient precision. Each man a honed weapon, they employed their demon slayer breathing techniques, their movements blurring, their strikes impossibly fast and effective. Northern steel scythed through the press of bodies. There was no mercy, no hesitation. Those who tried to grab, to impede, to block their path, were met with swift, lethal force. The initial shock of the mob was immediate. They had expected shouts, perhaps a few arrests, but not this cold, uncompromising savagery. This was not the gold cloaks. This was something else entirely. Screams, not of rage, but of pure terror, began to ripple through the crowd. The mob, which moments before had been a unified, defiant force, began to fracture. Bodies fell, a grim harvest in the packed square. The wolf pack carved a bloody swath, a living battering ram. Their eyes were distant, focused only on the target, the shepherd. They were relentless, a dark tide of retribution. The sheer speed and ruthlessness of their assault caught the rioters entirely off guard. No one had anticipated such a direct, uncompromising response. The shepherd, still ranting, saw them coming. His eyes widened as the bodies piled up, as the screams intensified, as the blood began to flow. His voice faltered, his sermon replaced by a look of dawning horror. The crowd around him, once his fervent disciples, began to recoil, pushing back, trampling over each other in a desperate scramble to escape the merciless advance. Theon was at the front, his sword a dark blur, not striking wildly, but precisely, eliminating any obstacle with grim determination. He was a storm of focused intent. Finally, they reached the shepherd. He stood frozen, his eyes wide with terror, his mouth agape, his thunderous voice reduced to a pathetic whimper. A wolf pack member, moving with lightning speed, seized the shepherd, pulling him from his podium. His words of fire and brimstone died on his lips. "We have him," Roddy announced, his voice gruff, his axe still gleaming. "To the Red Keep," Theon commanded, his voice cold and hard. "Secure him." The shepherd, a trembling, pathetic figure now, was swiftly bound and dragged through the terrified, scattering remnants of his mob. The crowd, witnessing the utter ruthlessness of Theon's actions, broke and fled in all directions. The immediate threat on Cobbler's Square had been neutralized. The message was clear: rebellion would be met with an unyielding, brutal response. The shepherd was taken directly to a secure, forgotten chamber deep within the Red Keep. Here, away from the eyes of the court and the common folk, the true work began. Theon oversaw the interrogation personally. He was not interested in simple confessions of guilt, he wanted answers. He wanted to know who had pulled the strings. The shepherd, for all his fire and brimstone, was a coward underneath. He screamed, he begged, he cursed, but for a long time, he offered no names, no true answers beyond his vague ideology. Theon employed the full spectrum of persuasive techniques, some physical, some psychological, honed from long experience in the cold north where information was often vital for survival. The wolf pack members, accustomed to extracting truths from difficult men, assisted with grim efficiency. Ours turned into a grueling, tortuous ordeal. The shepherd's conviction slowly, painfully, crumbled under the relentless pressure. His body, once so animated, became a broken mess. His spirit, once so defiant, was reduced to despair. Finally, his voice a raw, broken whisper, he gave them what they wanted. A cloaked person, he croaked, his eyes wide with fear, staring blankly at the ceiling. Came to me, in the night, not from the city, had a voice like sand, like stone. Cregan leaned in, his face unyielding. What did they tell you? What did they offer? They gave me 10 dragons, the shepherd confessed, the shame and terror mingling in his voice. 10 golden dragons. 2. To speak ill of the dragons. To ramble, of hate. To call for their death. To blame them for all ills. They said King's Landing would listen. They said the fear was already there. 10 dragons, Cregan repeated, his voice dangerously low. For the ruin of a city. Did they give a name? A sign? The shepherd shook his head weakly, tears mixing with the grime and sweat on his face. No name. Just a voice, and the gold. They said, the doom of Valyria would come again if the dragons remained. Only by cleansing King's Landing, would the 7 kingdoms be saved. Cregan straightened, his gaze cold. The cloaked person, the 10 dragons, the specific rhetoric echoing the maester's fears. It was a clear, insidious attempt to use the city's populace as a weapon against the crown's dragons, to fuel the flames of a new, internal war. He's given us what he knows, Cregan stated, his voice flat. He's served his purpose. A wolf pack member, his face impassive, stepped forward. The shepherd, seeing the lethal intent in the man's eyes, whimpered one last time. Then, swift and silent, it was over. The shepherd, the prophet of doom, was dead. His hateful words, his fleeting power, extinguished. Hours later, the small council reconvened. The urgency was palpable, the recent riot a stark reminder of the simmering tensions beneath the surface of the conquered capital. Rhaenyra looked weary, but resolute. Cregan recounted the shepherd's capture and his confession. The revelation of the cloaked person, and the payment sent a fresh wave of concern through the council. So, someone actively orchestrated this, Curlys mused, stroking his beard. Fanned the flames of fear, turning the populace against the crown's most potent weapon. This points to a deeper, more cunning enemy than just the Hightowers. It's a faith's trick, Cregan stated, his voice devoid of emotion. The same subtle poison that has always plagued your house. They may not have the power of swords, but they can wield the minds of men. Maester Gerardis shifted uncomfortably in his seat, though he remained silent. Sir Laurent Marbrand, the new Lord Commander, clenched his jaw, his eyes grim. We cannot allow such unrest to spread, Rhaenyra declared, her voice firm. Not with Demon and Jacaris in the Stormlands. Not while the realm is still healing. Indeed, Your Grace, Cregan agreed. The common folk are easily swayed. We need to project an image of absolute control, of unyielding authority. And we need to break the mob's will to gather. How do we do that? Jacaris asked, his youthful face troubled by the events. We can't just kill every single person who protests. No, Cregan replied, but we can prevent them from forming into a cohesive, dangerous force. My proposal is this. For the next week, no more than 4 persons will be permitted to gather in any public space in King's Landing. Any larger assembly will be dispersed immediately, by force if necessary. Maester Gerardis gasped. Prince Cregan, that is an extreme measure. It will cause widespread resentment. It is a draconian law. And a riot that sweeps through the city and threatens the Queen's dragons is an extreme threat, Maester, Cregan retorted, his gaze chilling. Resentment can be dealt with later. Chaos cannot. This will break their ability to form mobs, to be inflamed by new shepherds. It is a hard hand, Curlys conceded, but the prince speaks with sense. We need to re-establish order, completely and utterly. The gold cloaks are still recovering from the recent battles and the initial riot, Sir Luther Largent stated, concerned. They are stretched thin. My wolf pack will assist them, Cregan assured him. They are disciplined. They will enforce the order without hesitation. Rhaenyra listened intently, her eyes weighing the options. The prospect of further bloodshed within the city was unappealing, but the alternative, a city consumed by riot, her dragons vulnerable, her authority challenged, was unthinkable. For a week, Rhaenyra decided, her voice firm. The decree will be issued immediately. No more than 4 persons in public gatherings. Any larger gathering will be dispersed. The gold cloaks, aided by Prince Cregan's wolf pack, will enforce this without exception. And once the week is over? Jacaris asked. Once the riots have calmed down, and the city has settled, the decree will be lifted, Cregan stated. Then the city will function properly once more. But they will remember that the crown's authority is absolute. And they will learn that fear, if wielded against the crown, will be met with unwavering force. The council, though some still looked uneasy, ultimately agreed. The lessons of Aldtown, the sheer ruthlessness of Cregan's methods, had instilled a new understanding of what it took to secure a kingdom. The city, unknowingly, was about to experience a week of martial law unlike any it had ever known, all in the name of peace. 3 comments 0 vote. Riots 2. 134 AC. Third person POV. The brutal decree had been issued, a stark, uncompromising edict that descended upon King's Landing like a sudden, chilling frost. No more than 4 persons in public gatherings. It was a measure born of necessity, a desperate attempt to staunch the bleeding wound of fear and fanaticism that the shepherd had opened. For 2 days, the city held its breath. The initial riots had been quelled with a swift, merciless hand, but the underlying resentment, the simmering fear of dragons, remained. The Gold Cloaks pack, aided by the Wolf pack, patrolled relentlessly, their dark armor a constant, visible reminder of the crown's unyielding authority. Any gathering, no matter how innocent, was immediately dispersed. Sometimes, it was with a stern warning from a grim-faced gold cloak. Sometimes, it was with the chilling, silent presence of a northern warrior. Often, it was with a brutal shove, a swift, no-nonsense enforcement that left no room for argument or defiance. The message was clear. The common folk, still reeling from the shock of the Dragon Gate's fall and the shepherd's grisly end, quickly learned the new rules. They learned them in the quiet fear of the streets. The city's usual vibrant energy drained away, replaced by an unsettling hush. The markets, once a cacophony of shouts, laughter, and haggling, were now subdued. Vendors spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously. Customers moved quickly, their faces wary, their purchases hurried. The vibrant tapestry of daily life in the capital had frayed, replaced by a threadbare quiet. A profound silence descended upon the capital, a silence born not of peace, but of profound fear and simmering resentment. The usual chatter of neighbors, once a constant hum, ceased. The boisterous games of children in the alleys, usually a joyful noise, were no longer heard. The casual gatherings outside taverns, once a nightly ritual, vanished entirely. All ceased, utterly and completely. People moved with a desperate purpose, their eyes downcast, avoiding prolonged contact. They were wary of being seen, wary of being noticed, above all, wary of being seen in a group larger than 4. The very air seemed to prickle with unspoken tension. The fear of the dragons, now unchained and roaring from the dragon pit, mingled with the fear of the crown. And, perhaps most insidiously, the fear of each other. This stifling atmosphere hung heavy over the city for a full week. It was a long, agonizing 7 days where the capital felt like a ghost town. Its vibrant spirit, its bustling heart, seemed to have been utterly stifled by the heavy hand of martial law. The air was thick with the weight of unseen eyes, with the unspoken threat of swift reprisal. Within the Red Keep, the tension was different. It was the tension of a siege, a fortress holding against an invisible enemy. Rhaenyra, though she had agreed to Cregan's harsh measures, felt the heavy burden of her people's fear. She saw the drawn faces of her servants, the averted gazes of her guards. She knew the price of this brutal order. Jacares looked visibly troubled by the measures. His youthful idealism, so recently ignited by the cause of his mother's ascension, clashed painfully with the brutal realities of governance. He struggled with the violence. Cregan, however, remained impassive. He understood the raw necessity of it. This was not about popularity, it was about control. It was about crushing a potential rebellion before it could truly take hold. A realm could not be ruled if its capital was a hotbed of sedition, if its people could be so easily swayed by a madman's words. The roots of the problem ran deeper than a single shepherd. They needed to be severed. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the tensions in King's Landing began to cool. The initial shock wore off. The immediate, brutal enforcement had its desired effect. The relentless patrols, the swift dispersal of groups, the undeniable, overwhelming power of the Crown's response, it began to sink in. The lessons of the past few weeks had been etched in fear. The fear of the wolf pack and the Queen's wrath began to outweigh the fear of the dragons. The common folk, pragmatic in their daily struggles, prioritized survival. People started to venture out more, cautiously at first, then with a growing sense of a fragile, uneasy normalcy. The markets regained a fraction of their previous bustle. Though conversations remained hushed, and groups rarely exceeded the decreed limit. The city, though still wary, was no longer on the brink of outright rebellion. The immediate crisis had passed. With the city now under a fragile, uneasy calm, the small council convened once more. The atmosphere was somber, the weight of the recent events pressing down on them all. The immediate threat had been contained, but the underlying cause, the pervasive influence of the faith, remained. It was a serpent in the heart of the realm. Rhaenyra sat at the head of the table, her gaze sweeping over her council. Curlys, Rhaenys, Jacaerys, Maester Gerardys, Esser Luther Largent, Esser Laurent Marbrand, and Cregan. Roddy, as always, stood silently behind Cregan. The city is quiet, for now, Rhaenyra began, her voice weary, but firm. Prince Cregan's measures, though harsh, have proven effective in quelling the immediate unrest. She paused, her eyes meeting Cregan's, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. But this was merely a symptom. The true disease, it seems, lies deeper. The shepherd's words, though paid for, resonated because the ground was fertile. The faith. A collective sigh went around the table. The faith of the Seven, with its pervasive influence, its vast wealth, and its deep roots in every corner of the South, was a power that even kings and queens had historically struggled to control. We cannot allow this to happen again, Jacaerys said, his voice firm, his youthful resolve hardened by the recent violence he had witnessed. The people's fear of dragons, their belief in these prophecies of doom, it's dangerous. Indeed, Rhaenys agreed, her expression grim. The faith has always held a certain sway over the common folk, a power that sometimes rivals the crown's. It was same during Maegor's reign. Twice have they actively incited such violence against the royal house. The Maesters, conspiracy, Curlys added, stroking his beard, his eyes narrowed in thought. And the faith's rhetoric against magic. They are two sides of the same coin, both seeking to undermine the Targaryens. We have dealt with the Citadel. Now, we must deal with the faith. Rhaenyra looked at Cregan, her gaze expectant. Prince Cregan, you spoke of curbing their power. How do we do this without plunging the realm into a full-scale religious war, which we can ill afford? Cregan leaned forward, his gaze steady, his voice calm but resolute. The conclusion is simple, Your Grace. The power of the faith must be curbed. Severely. They must be reminded, unequivocally, that nobody is above the king's law. Maester Gerardys shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his fingers nervously fiddling with his chain. Your Grace, the faith holds immense spiritual authority. To challenge it directly, that is a perilous path. The common people revere the gods. They may see this as blasphemy. Spiritual authority is one thing, Maester, Cregan interrupted, his eyes cold, cutting through the old man's protests. Political power is another. The faith militant was disbanded by Jaehaerys the Conciliator for a reason. They grew too powerful, too arrogant. This is a similar threat, albeit one wielded through words rather than swords, for now. How do we make them know it? Esser Luther Largent asked, his hand resting on his sword hilt, a knight more comfortable with blunt force than political maneuvering. The High Septon is a powerful figure. His word carries immense weight throughout the land. We make examples, Cregan stated, his voice devoid of mercy. Publicly, any member of the faith, from the humblest septon to the highest septon, who defies a royal decree, who preaches sedition against the crown, who incites violence among the populace, will be arrested, tried, and punished under the king's law. No special courts, no appeals to the gods. Just the crown's justice, swift and uncompromising. This would be a radical departure, Curlys mused, his brow furrowed. The faith has always had its own jurisdiction, its own laws, since the coming of the Andals. It's an ancient tradition. And those laws have allowed them to grow beyond their station, beyond their rightful place, Cregan countered, his voice sharp. They will learn that their spiritual authority does not grant them immunity from the laws of the land. The crown is the ultimate, sole authority in Westeros. Not the faith, not the maesters, only the crown. We will need to issue new edicts, Rhaenyra said, her brow furrowed in deep thought, weighing the immense implications of such a move. Clearly stating the crown's supremacy in all matters of law and governance. And ensure every lord, every septon, hears them and understands them clearly. And enforces them, Cregan added, pressing the point. Any lord who harbors a defiant septon, or who allows seditious preaching within their lands, will face the crown's wrath. Make the consequences clear. Make them absolute. The message must be uniform and uncompromising across the entire realm. The people turn to the faith out of dissatisfaction with current Westeros, Jacaerys observed, his voice thoughtful, his idealism still intact amidst the harsh realities. They seek solace, hope, answers in a world that often seems cruel and unjust. If we simply crush the faith, will they not find another outlet for their discontent? Perhaps a darker one. Precisely, Prince Jacaerys, Cregan acknowledged, giving the young prince a rare, approving nod. The people are unhappy. They feel neglected, powerless. The faith fills that void. The only way to stop this long-term is by improving the lives of the people and ensuring that they know to credit the crown with those improvements. How do we do that? Rhaenys asked, her gaze sharp, ever practical. The realm is still recovering from the recent war. Resources are strained. Our treasury, though replenished from Castle Rock, is not limitless. It's a long-term strategy, princess, not a quick fix, Cregan explained patiently. It won't happen overnight, but the groundwork must be laid now. We rebuild faster. We invest heavily in the infrastructure that directly benefits the common folk. He began to list specific initiatives. First, we improve the drainage problem of King's Landing, then the roads, for safer travel and trade. Granaries, publicly managed, to store food and prevent starvation in lean years. Wells, to provide clean water. Orphanages for the destitute. Even basic health centers, where simple ailments can be treated, not just by septons but by healers trained by the crown. Public works, Curlys nodded, understanding dawning. That would put men to work, stimulate the economy, provide tangible benefits. Exactly, Cregan confirmed. And as these improvements are made, we ensure the people know who is responsible. Not the septons, not the gods, but the queen. Royal decrees announcing new granaries, new wells, new roads. Public ceremonies where the queen, or her representatives, dedicate these improvements. Bards singing not of the high septon's prayers, but of the queen's foresight, her benevolence, her commitment to her people. We must make the crown the undisputed source of their prosperity, their security, their hope. Information, Rhaenys stated, a wry smile touching her lips. Propaganda, by another name. Truth, presented effectively, princess, Cregan corrected, a faint smirk playing on his own lips. The faith promises salvation in the next life. We offer improvement in this one. We show them that the crown provides tangible, immediate benefits, while the faith offers only promises of an afterlife. We make the crown the source of their prosperity, their security, their very future. And about their donations, Rhaenyra said, her voice thoughtful, remembering one of Cregan's earlier points. They receive vast sums from lords and small folk alike. That fuels their wealth, their power, their influence. That stops, Cregan stated flatly. The flow of coin to the faith must be cut off. Lords are to only donate food and clothes to the faith. Not coin, not gold, not silver, only provisions, necessities. Maester Gerardus's eyes widened in alarm. But the faith relies on those donations for its very functioning. For the upkeep of seps, for the training of septons, for the care of its own poor. Then they will learn to manage their resources differently, Cregan retorted, his gaze chillingly dismissive of the maester's protests. Their functioning is not the crown's concern, beyond their basic spiritual duties. Their wealth allows them to operate outside the crown's control, to build their own power base, to bribe, to influence. That ends. And if a lord defies this? Curlys asked, his voice low. If they continue to donate coin. Cregan's eyes narrowed. If they donate coin, they should pay twice the amount as a penalty to the crown. An immediate fine, levied directly from their own coffers. A clear, painful consequence for defiance. No exceptions. No excuses. This specific penalty sent a ripple of shock through the council. It was a direct attack on the faith's financial lifeblood, and a severe test of the lords' loyalty. This will be met with strong opposition from the High Septon and the devout lords, Sir Laurent Marbrand cautioned, his face grim. Let them oppose, Cregan said, his voice hard. They will learn. The crown, for too long, has allowed the faith to dictate terms. That era is over. The king's peace, and the queen's law, will prevail. And what of the faith's leaders themselves? Rhaenyra asked, her voice hardening, her eyes reflecting the growing steel in her resolve. The ones who preach against us, who hold sway over the masses, who refuse to bend. We point out the faith's leaders' own inadequacies and failures to live by their own doctrine, Cregan stated, his voice chillingly pragmatic. Even if it needs to be falsified. Maester Gerardus gasped again, his face paling further, almost green. Prince Cregan, to falsify information against holy men, that is a grave sin. It is deceit. It is blasphemy. Sin or not, Maester, Cregan retorted, his gaze fixing on the trembling Maester, his eyes devoid of warmth. It is effective. The common folk are not stupid. They are quick to turn on those who preach virtue but live in vice. We find their weaknesses, their indulgences, their moments of avarice, their secret lusts, their hidden bastards. We expose them, publicly. But if the accusations are false? Jacares interjected again, his youthful idealism still struggling against the grim realities of power. What if they are good men falsely accused? Then they are presented as truth, Prince, Cregan said, his voice flat, utterly devoid of emotion. The truth is often inconvenient. The perception is what matters. We paint them as greedy, as power-hungry, as living in luxury while their flock starves. We show them as failing to live by the very laws they impose on others. We make them odious in the eyes of the common folk. We destroy their moral standing. Rhaenys nodded slowly, a grim understanding in her eyes. A smear campaign. It would certainly undermine their moral authority, leaving them with nothing but empty robes. Precisely, Cregan confirmed. Their power comes from their perceived piety. Shatter that perception, and their influence crumbles. We use whispers, pamphlets, carefully placed, witnesses. We turn the people against their own shepherds, not with fire and sword, but with disillusionment. We sow distrust where there was once blind faith. And for the truly dangerous ones? Rhaenyra asked, her voice low, her eyes meeting Cregan's, the grim question hanging heavy in the air. The ones who cannot be swayed, who will continue to preach sedition, who will actively work against the crown, who will not bend, who will not break. For them, Cregan stated, his voice dropping to a near whisper, cutting through the silence of the chamber, we quietly disappear key figures in the faith. Another sharp intake of breath from Maester Gerardes, a soft gasp from Jacares. Sir Luther Largent's hand involuntarily tightened on his sword hilt, his knuckles turning white. This was beyond even the public executions in Aldtown. This was a chilling, unseen hand of power, reaching into the shadows. No public trials, Cregan explained, his voice chillingly calm, as if discussing mundane logistics. No martyrs. No grand pronouncements. They simply vanish. One day, a septon is preaching fire and brimstone, his voice loud and defiant. The next, he is gone. Vanished into thin air. No trace. No body to rally around. No shrine to visit. No cause to mourn. The message will be clear, Cregan continued, his eyes unwavering. Defy the crown, and you cease to exist. The fear of the unknown, of a quiet, unseen demise, is often more potent than the fear of the sword. It breaks the will, not just of the target, but of all who hear the whispers. This is extreme, Jacares said again, his face pale, struggling with the concept. This is necessary, Prince, Cregan countered, his gaze unwavering. The faith has proven it can incite rebellion. It can undermine the crown's authority. It can turn the people against their rightful rulers. We cannot afford to be gentle with a threat that seeks to destroy the very fabric of the realm, that seeks to plunge us back into chaos. We are at war, Prince Jacares. A war for the heart and soul of Westeros. And war requires hard choices. We secure the throne not just with dragons and armies, but by breaking the will of those who would see it fall, by any means necessary. Rhaenyra listened intently, her face a mask of deep thought. The methods were ruthless, undeniably so. But Cregan had delivered Aldtown, had captured Darren, had brought the treasury back. He had quelled the riot. He had proven his pragmatism, his brutal effectiveness. And the threat from the faith was real, immediate, and insidious. Very well, Rhaenyra finally said, her voice firm, though a shadow of weariness remained in her eyes. These measures will be implemented. Maester Gerardes, you will begin drafting the decrees regarding the king's law and the faith's new limitations on donations. Sir Luther, you will work with Prince Cregan on the enforcement and the disappearances. This will be a long process, a difficult one, but it begins now. Cregan nodded, a grim satisfaction settling in his heart. The realm would be reshaped, not just by fire and blood, but by cold, calculated strategy. The faith would learn its place, and the people would learn to look to their queen, not their septons, for their salvation. The dance was far from over, but the rules of the game were being rewritten, decisively, by the North. 14 comments 0 vote. Reunion. 134 AC. Third person POV. 3 moons had passed since that fraught small council meeting, 3 moons since the brutal decrees had been issued, transforming King's Landing from a city on the brink of riot into a realm under stern, watchful control. The air in the capital had shifted, slowly, from one of suppressed fury to a cautious, almost resigned acceptance. During this time, the crown had set about its task with a grim determination. The words spoken by Theon Stark in the council chamber had not been mere rhetoric, they were blueprints for a radical transformation. One of the most visible changes, designed to address the deep-seated dissatisfaction of the populace, was the opening of orphanages. Not just one, but several, established in disused guildhalls and converted warehouses throughout the city. These were bright, clean places, a stark contrast to the grim squalor of Flea Bottom. Here, children who had lost their parents to war, to disease, to poverty, found shelter. They were given warm meals, decent clothes, and even rudimentary lessons in reading and sums. The sounds of their laughter, once a rarity, began to echo in previously silent courtyards. Alongside the orphanages, food banks were opened. These were centralized distribution points, where grain, dried fish, and basic provisions were given to the poor, to the hungry children, to those who had long survived on scraps and charity. Long queues, orderly now, stretched from these food banks each morning. The faces of the people, gaunt from hunger, slowly began to fill out, a healthier color returning to their cheeks. The immediate, gnawing pangs of starvation lessened for many. The relief was palpable, a quiet gratitude that seeped into the city's tired bones. It was a tangible improvement, undeniable and visible, for those who had suffered the most. Beyond immediate relief, the crown began a monumental undertaking of infrastructure development. The sounds of hammers on stone, of shovels digging into earth, became common. A new drainage system was being constructed. Years of accumulated filth and waste in the city's narrow, winding alleys had bred disease and despair. Now, trenches were dug, pipes laid, designed to carry the refuse away, to improve sanitation. The stench of the city, especially in the poorer districts, began to lessen, albeit slowly. It was a long, arduous task, but one that promised a healthier, more dignified future for the populace. And perhaps the most ambitious project of all. Houses were being constructed away from Flea Bottom, in a systematic, orderly fashion on the city's undeveloped outskirts. These were not grand manors, but sturdy, simple homes. They were built with stone foundations, proper roofs, and basic sanitation. Each house had its own small patch of ground. They were planned, designed to offer a clean, safe alternative to the hovels of Flea Bottom. The vision was clear. Once these houses were constructed, the people from Flea Bottom would be moved there. Out of the squalor, out of the despair, into a new, more hopeful beginning. This was a promise, whispered at first, then spoken more openly, a beacon for those trapped in the wretchedness of the old city. These visible improvements, these tangible changes, were subtle, powerful affirmations of the crown's commitment. And with each new orphanage, each full food bank, each new stone laid for the drainage system, each new house rising, the crown ensured the populace knew who was responsible. Royal banners flew over construction sites. Decrees were read, not just of law, but of benevolence. The bards, paid by the crown, sang of Rhaenyra's vision, of her kindness, of her tireless efforts to rebuild the realm. The message was driven home. The crown was delivering, the faith merely prayed. For the changes made in law regarding the faith, there were initially some protests. Small lords, devout and traditional, grumbled about the curtailment of their sacred right to donate coin to the faith. The High Septon, a figure of immense spiritual authority, initially spoke out, his words echoing in the few septs still allowed to hold large services. He condemned the new decrees as blasphemous, as an attack on the gods themselves. Individual septons and septas preached sermons of defiance, urging their flocks to resist the crown's usurpation of the faith's ancient rights. They spoke of divine wrath, of curses, of the wrath of the seven. But the crown's response was swift and uncompromising. There were no negotiations, no pleas. The protesters, from the grumbling small lords to the defiant septons, were threatened. They were told, in no uncertain terms, to curb their enthusiasm. The warnings were delivered by silent, grim-faced gold cloaks, or by the chilling presence of a wolf pack member at their door. The message was clear: defy the crown, and the consequences would be severe. And if they didn't listen, if their enthusiasm was not sufficiently curbed, they were taken care of. These, taking cares of, were swift and chillingly efficient. Key figures in the faith, known for their defiance, simply vanished. A septon would deliver a fiery sermon one day, and the next, he would not appear. No body was found, no public arrest, no formal charge, just a sudden, terrifying absence. Whispers spread like wildfire, tales of these disappearances, of men swallowed by the night. The fear of the crown, the fear of the unknown, began to grip the devout. The High Septon's pronouncements grew less fervent, then became cautious, then quietly ceased to mention the new laws at all. The small lords, seeing the fate of their more vocal counterparts, quickly fell in line. The double penalty for donating coin to the faith was levied without mercy, a painful lesson that enforced compliance. The faith's power, slowly but surely, began to recede, like a tide pulling back from the shore. The common folk, seeing their septons vanish, seeing the crown provide tangible aid, began to shift their loyalty. Meanwhile, a week ago, the triumphant news had reached King's Landing. Daemon and Jacaerys had returned from the Stormlands. Their campaign had been as swift and brutal as planned, a textbook example of Targaryen might. Barros Baratheon, the defiant lord of Storm's End, had been put to the sword. His castle, once thought impregnable, had fallen swiftly to the combined might of two dragons and demons' veteran army. Everything had happened as they planned. The war, for the most part, was won. The realm was being brought to heel. And to solidify the new order, Aegon the Younger would indeed marry one of Boros's daughters, bringing the Stormlands under the direct, albeit forced, influence of the crown. He would rule Storm's End, a young lord with loyal regents. The war's most personal tragedy for Rhaenyra's family had also seen a joyous reprieve. Lucerys had woken from his coma. He had been awake for a full moon now, a fragile miracle. The news had brought immense relief to the royal family, to the entire Red Keep. For weeks, his life had hung by a thread, a constant, agonizing worry. But now, he was healthy. Still recovering, perhaps a little weaker, but alive. He was eating, talking, his mind sharp, his spirit unbroken. Everyone was happy, a true sense of celebration in the midst of the grim governance. And today, the day was marked by another, deeply anticipated arrival. Visenya was coming to the south from Asgard. Her return, after months of absence, was a beacon of hope, a symbol of family reuniting in a world slowly finding its balance. On the bustling, newly regulated port of King's Landing, a small, distinguished party had gathered to await her. Cregan stood at the forefront, his usual impassive demeanor softened by a tremor of anticipation. Beside him, Jacaerys watched the horizon with eager eyes, happy for his sister's return. Lucerys, still a little pale but standing tall, gripped Jace's arm, his own excitement evident in his gaze. And young Aegon, solemn as ever, stood quietly, observing the scene. The sea breeze carried the tang of salt and the distant cries of gulls. The docks, though under strict crown regulation, held a sense of expectant energy. Finally, on the shimmering expanse of Blackwater Bay, a distinctive silhouette appeared. A northern ship, its dark sails emblazoned with the Stark direwolf, cut through the waves. It was a sturdy vessel, built for the rough northern seas. It approached the dock slowly, deliberately, its timbers groaning softly. The sails were skillfully lowered, the ropes thrown, and the ship eased into its berth, a familiar and welcome sight for Cregan. The gangplank was lowered with a soft thud, connecting the ship to the land. A figure appeared at the top, and a wave of quiet relief, almost a palpable sigh, went through the waiting party. It was Visenya. She descended the gangplank, her movements graceful, her presence radiating a quiet power. She wore practical traveling clothes, her dark hair pulled back, but her eyes, those striking purple eyes, held a light that brightened the entire gloomy port. Her gaze swept over the waiting figures, a warm smile gracing her lips. She moved first to her brothers. She embraced Jacaerys, a quick, affectionate hug, then held Lucerys tightly, tears welling in her eyes at the sight of him healthy and whole. She kissed Aegon gently on the head, a gesture of familial warmth. She acknowledged the gold cloaks and the few curious onlookers with a regal nod. Then, her eyes finally found Cregan. They locked, and for a moment, the bustling port, the waiting family, the very world seemed to fade into a blur. It was as if they were the only two people left in existence. She walked towards him, her steps measured, her gaze unwavering. Cregan, for the first time in moons, felt an almost overwhelming wave of emotion wash over him. He felt his stoic facade crack, just slightly. She reached him, and without a hint of hesitation, with no sense of royalty, no regard for protocol, she simply reached up and kissed him. It was a soft kiss at first, then deepened, a tender embrace that spoke volumes of longing, of shared burdens, of a bond forged in fire and ice. It was a kiss of pure, unadulterated affection, a woman for her man, a moment of intimate connection utterly disregarding the public setting. The members of the royal family, even Roddy, looked away, granting them a private moment. Jacaerys and Lucerys exchanged glances and smiled at each other. When they finally broke apart, Visenya's eyes were shining, and Cregan's stern features were noticeably softer, a warmth in his usually cold gaze. "You did it," Visenya whispered, her voice husky with emotion, her hand reaching up to touch his cheek, utterly ignoring the presence of their family and the hushed whispers of the onlookers. "I said I would," Cregan replied, his voice rougher than usual, his large hand gently covering hers. "Are you well? Is Asgard well?" "As well as can be," she murmured, her eyes searching his, tracing the subtle new lines of weariness around his eyes. "And you, my prince? The city, the war, you have done too much." "What needed to be done," he answered, a familiar grimness returning, but softened by her presence. "Much has changed." They stood there for a few more moments, lost in each other's presence, their conversation a private world that excluded all others. The waiting royal family, the curious onlookers, the clamor of the port, all faded into the background. Finally, with a gentle nudge from Jacaerys, who cleared his throat subtly, they broke their intense focus on each other. Visenya, with a radiant smile that enveloped all her family, linked her arm through Cregan's. Together, they made their way from the docks, their steps in unison, towards the towering walls of the Red Keep. Visenya, her hand still firmly clasped in Cregan's, walked towards the waiting family in the Red Keep's courtyard. The air, which had been thick with the dust of war and the tension of recent riots, now seemed to shimmer with anticipation and relief. The grand archway of the Red Keep framed the scene, a picture of a family reunited against all odds. Queen Rhaenyra stepped forward first, her face a mask of regal composure that cracked the moment her eyes met her daughter's. A choked sob escaped her, and she rushed forward, embracing Visenya fiercely. "My daughter," Rhaenyra murmured, her voice thick with emotion, tears streaming down her face. "You are safe. You are truly here." She held Visenya tight, as if afraid she might vanish, pressing kisses to her hair and forehead. Visenya returned the embrace with equal fervor, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. "Mother," she whispered, her own voice trembling with relief. "I'm home." The long separation, the fear for each other's lives, melted away in that embrace. Daemon Targaryen, ever the rogue, stood back for a moment, observing the tender reunion. But then, a rare, genuine smile touched his lips. He stepped forward, his eyes softening as Rhaenyra finally released Visenya. "Little dragon," Daemon said, his voice surprisingly gentle, and he pulled Visenya into a brief, firm hug. "You have grown, and you have chosen, wisely." His gaze flickered to Cregan, a silent acknowledgement of the Northern Prince's role. Visenya smiled up at her stepfather. "Daemon, it is good to see you well." Then came the younger children, eager and boisterous. Aegon the younger, solemn as ever, offered a polite bow, still a little shy. Viserys, the youngest, clung to Rhaenyra's skirts, peeking out with wide, curious eyes. Baela and Rhaena, Daemon's daughters and Visenya's cousins, rushed forward, their faces alight with joy. They embraced her warmly, a whirlwind of excited chatter. "You're finally here. We missed you so much." Visenya laughed, a bright, clear sound that filled the courtyard. She hugged them back, asking about their dragons, their lessons, their lives in the Red Keep. Cregan stood slightly apart, observing the scene, a quiet satisfaction in his eyes. He had brought her home. He had delivered her to her family, safe and sound. Rhaenyra, finally pulling herself away from her children, turned to Cregan, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Prince Cregan," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "Thank you. For everything, everything you did. House Targaryen will never forget what you have done for us. If you want anything you wish for, ask, I will give it to you if it is in my power." "It was my honor. I will think about the wish and ask for it later, Your Grace," Cregan replied, bowing his head respectfully. The entire family then moved into the castle, the grand hall echoing with their joyous chatter. The Red Keep, so recently a place of grim battle and tense strategy, now felt filled with life, with laughter, with the warmth of a family finally reunited. Visenya, still holding Cregan's hand, walked beside her mother, her gaze sweeping over the familiar faces, the familiar halls. She was home, and with Cregan by her side, the future, though still uncertain, felt filled with promise. The reunion was a powerful symbol, not just for the Targaryens, but for the entire realm. It was a visual testament to the end of the civil war, to the victory of the Blacks, and to the new, formidable alliance forged between the dragons of the south and the wolf of the north. The queen was on her throne, her family was whole, and the realm, though scarred, could finally begin to heal. Blank, underscore, blank, underscore, blank. A.N. What should Cregan ask for? He cannot ask for land outside the north, because he will return to the north sometime in the future. 16 comments 0 vote. Celebration. 134 AC. Third person POV. The Great Hall of the Red Keep had shed its recent grim attire, no longer merely a chamber for tense councils or somber pronouncements of war. Tonight, it was transformed, bathed in the soft, golden glow of triumph and reunion. Thousands of candles, meticulously placed in every sconce and chandelier, cast a warm, flickering light upon the scene. Their flames danced, reflecting off polished gold and gleaming silver, creating a dazzling spectacle that banished the shadows of conflict. Massive tapestries, vibrant with the history of the Targaryens, depicted dragons soaring and kings ruling, now hung proudly from the walls. They covered the scorch marks and battle scars of the recent conflicts, restoring an illusion of ancient peace and grandeur. Fresh flowers, gathered from the royal gardens and perhaps even imported from the secured riverlands, adorned every surface. Their sweet, subtle fragrance mingled with the rich, savory aromas wafting from the kitchens, promising a feast beyond compare. Long tables, constructed from dark, ancient wood, stretched across the vast hall, seemingly endless in their expanse. They were laden with platters piled high, awaiting the feast, promising an abundance of delicacies. Fine linen tablecloths, intricately embroidered with the three-headed dragon and the seahorse of Velaryon, gleamed under the candlelight, pristine and inviting. Goblets of hammered gold and polished silver stood ready, alongside ornate goblets of crystal, catching the light and promising endless draughts of rich arbor gold and potent northern ale. From the high minstrels' gallery, tucked away above the main floor, the strains of music began to fill the air. It was not martial music, nor somber dirges of mourning, but joyous, lilting melodies played on lutes, harps, and flutes, a promise of celebration and merriment. The air itself seemed to hum with anticipation, a collective exhaled breath after months of suffocating tension and uncertainty. The intoxicating smells of roasted meats, fragrant spices, freshly baked bread, and rich, sweet pastries filled every corner of the vast hall. Guests began to arrive, streaming through the grand doors, their faces reflecting a mix of relief, cautious optimism, and eager anticipation for a lavish meal after so long. First, the lesser lords and knights, their faces still bearing the faint lines of war's stress, but now softened by hope. They moved with a quiet excitement, finding their places at the lower tables. Then came the more prominent figures, the loyalists who had remained steadfast through the darkest days of the usurper's reign. Lord Darklan, his face pale but relieved, Lord Bar Emin, his quiet demeanor unchanged but his eyes bright with loyalty, Lord Celtigar, still somewhat aloof but present, acknowledging the Queen's triumph. Lord Staunton, who had lost much but remained fiercely loyal, and Lord Rosby, who had sworn fealty quickly when the tide turned, joined the growing assembly, their presence a testament to the shifting political landscape. The Northmen, grim and broad-shouldered, stood out amongst the southern finery, their dark leathers and furs a stark contrast to the silks and velvets. Roderick Dustin, the stalwart commander of the wolf pack, moved with quiet confidence, his eyes assessing the crowds, ever vigilant. His men, the very instruments of the recent peace, were scattered amongst the hall, watchful but allowing themselves to enjoy the revelry, their faces relaxed for once. Finally, a hush fell over the great hall, and a deep, resonant silence rippled through the gathered throng. A collective intake of breath descended as the doors to the royal apartments opened, and the royal family made their grand, triumphant entrance. Queen Rhaenyra entered first, regal and radiant in a gown of deep Targaryen red and black adorned with intricate silver embroidery that caught the candlelight. A delicate gold circlet, simple yet powerful, rested upon her silver gold hair. Though her face still bore the faint lines of stress from the war, it was softened by a profound joy, a sense of destiny fulfilled. By her side walked Daemon Targaryen, his customary smirk in place, but his eyes holding a glimmer of pride, a rare softness. He wore black leather and velvet, dark sister glinting at his hip, an aura of dangerous satisfaction emanating from him, a predator content with his hunt. And then, walking hand in hand behind them, came Visenya and Cregan. Their entrance was met with a murmur of particular interest, a ripple of curiosity and admiration. Visenya, in a gown of deep sapphire blue, its lines elegant and understated, looked every inch a princess, yet her eyes, often reserved, held a unique sparkle as she glanced at Cregan, a silent, shared secret. Cregan, in his customary dark leathers and furs, seemed a stark, powerful counterpoint to the southern finery. He was a force of nature, tamed only by the presence of the woman beside him. His hand, so recently stained with the blood of traitors, held Visenya's with a possessive gentleness, a silent claim. Following them was Jacares, looking matured by his recent campaign, his face open and friendly, a true heir. Lucerys, still a little slender but visibly healthier, walked beside his brother, a shy but genuine smile on his face, a testament to his miraculous recovery. Aegon the Younger, solemn and quiet, completed the young princely trio, his innocence a stark contrast to the battles that had raged. Baela and Rhaena, Daemon's daughters, followed, their bright eyes taking in the grand spectacle, their faces reflecting the joy of the occasion. The entire procession moved to the high table, situated on a raised dais at the far end of the hall, the focal point of the celebration. Rhaenyra took her place at the center, Daemon to her right, his presence a powerful anchor. Visenya settled to Rhaenyra's left, and Cregan, with a silent, almost imperceptible understanding, took the seat beside Visenya, rather than a place further down the table, a clear indication of his status. Jacares, Lucerys, Aegon, Baela, and Rhaena took their respective seats, completing the royal tableau, a picture of a family, scarred but whole. The hall filled with the gentle rustle of silks and the soft murmur of conversations resuming, albeit with a new, excited undertone, a buzz of anticipation. The first course was then served. White fish, lightly poached and drizzled with herb butter, delicate and flavorful. Delicate pastries filled with savory meat, seasoned with exotic spices, a taste of luxury. Platters of fresh oysters from the narrow sea, served on beds of glistening ice, a cool, refreshing start. The initial formality began to soften as wine flowed freely, loosening tongues and spirits. The murmur of conversation grew, a pleasant hum that filled the vast hall, punctuated by laughter and clinking goblets. Loyal lords approached the high table, bowing and offering their heartfelt congratulations to the queen on her hard-won victories. Rhaenyra, ever the gracious monarch, acknowledged each, offering warm words and accepting their renewed pledges of fealty. She radiated a sense of weary triumph, a queen firmly in control of her destiny, her burdens momentarily lightened by the celebration. Demon, meanwhile, observed the hall with a predatory satisfaction. His gaze flickered from one lord to another, assessing them, judging their sincerity, his mind always calculating. He exchanged a knowing glance with Cregan, a silent acknowledgement of the work done, the blood spilled, the realm secured. Visenya and Cregan, however, remained in a quieter world of their own, a bubble of intimacy amidst the grandeur. They spoke in low tones, their heads bent close together, a silent understanding passing between them, a language only they understood. Their hands, though no longer clasped, occasionally brushed, a subtle reaffirmation of their bond, a fleeting touch that sent sparks. They shared quiet smiles, a mutual recognition of the arduous path they had walked, both together and apart, that had led them to this moment. Cregan watched her as she spoke, the candlelight catching the violet in her eyes, the silver of her hair. There was a fierce protectiveness in his gaze, a quiet admiration for her resilience, her strength, her very being. Visenya, in turn, found a deep comfort in his presence. His quiet strength, his unwavering certainty, was a balm to her often turbulent spirit. He was her anchor, her north star, guiding her through the storms. As the first course was cleared, Rhaenyra rose, raising her goblet. A hush fell over the hall once more, the music softening, the conversations dying down. "My lords, and my ladies." Rhaenyra's voice rang out, clear and strong, echoing through the great hall. "Tonight, we feast, not just for food and drink, but for victory. For reunion. For a realm reborn." A cheer erupted, a thunderous roar that shook the very rafters of the Red Keep. Goblets were raised high, clinking in joyful celebration, a symphony of triumph. "For too long," Rhaenyra continued, her voice gaining power, her eyes blazing with conviction, "this realm has bled. Brother against brother, house against house. But the darkness recedes. The usurper's banners are torn. The Hightower's pride is shattered. The West is secured, and the Stormlands, brought to heel." Another, even louder cheer. The lords pounded the tables, their faces flushed with wine and triumph, their voices hoarse with exultation. "I thank my loyal champions," Rhaenyra declared, her gaze sweeping over Khalees, then settling on Daemon, then finally, lingering on Cregan and Visenya, a special warmth in her eyes. "My brave husband, Prince Daemon. My sons, Jacaerys and Lucerys. My cousin, Princess Rhaenys. And Prince Cregan Stark, the Wolf of Winterfell, who brought us salvation from the north." The hall erupted in renewed applause, particularly loud and fervent for Daemon and Cregan. The Northmen stomped their feet, a deep, resonant rumble of approval, a sound of their own. "And to my daughter, Visenya," Rhaenyra said, her voice softening, a profound tenderness entering her tone, "who returns to us from the Asgard as a warrior and a princess. Welcome home, my dear." Visenya offered a graceful bow, her eyes meeting her mother's, a silent message of love and loyalty passing between them, a bond reaffirmed. "This victory," Rhaenyra continued, her voice resonating with purpose, her gaze sweeping over the assembled faces, "was hard-won. Many lives were lost. But we stand here tonight, stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. This is not merely the end of a war, it is the dawn of a new era. An era of true peace, true justice, and a realm united under the rightful crown." She raised her goblet once more, her eyes shining with hope and determination. "To the Queen, to the dragons, to the Asgard, to the future of Westeros. To the Queen." The entire hall roared back, a wave of sound crashing against the walls, shaking the very foundations of the Red Keep. "To the dragons, to the Asgard, to Westeros." Khalees Velaryon, his face alight with pride, rose next, his old bones creaking slightly. He raised his own goblet, his voice booming. "To the courage of our Queen. To the valor of her dragons. And to the steadfast loyalty of all who stood with her when the shadows were darkest. May the Mother smile upon this reign, and the warrior guide our swords." His toast was met with similar enthusiasm, a reaffirmation of the alliances forged in the fires of war, a collective pledge of fealty. The main course was then brought out, a veritable feast of culinary wonders. Whole roasted boars, their skin crackling, apples in their mouths, a symbol of abundance. Platters of venison, glistening with rich sauces, a taste of the wild. Swans, roasted to a golden crisp, a delicacy for royalty. Peacocks, their vibrant feathers rearranged around them, a dazzling display of culinary artistry. Meat pies, bursting with savory fillings, and bowls of thick, hearty stews were passed around, offering comfort and sustenance. Baskets of fresh bread, crusty and warm, were constantly replenished, their aroma filling the air. The smell alone was intoxicating, a symphony of flavors. The music grew livelier. Bards began to sing ballads of recent battles, of demons' ferocity in the Westerlands, of Cregan's swift conquest of Aldtown, their voices weaving tales of heroism. Jugglers and acrobats performed feats of skill, drawing gasps and laughter from the crowd, adding to the festive atmosphere. The revelry deepened. Lords and ladies laughed freely, their voices mingling in a joyous din, their faces flushed with wine and good cheer. The weariness of war seemed to momentarily vanish, replaced by the sheer exultation of victory, a collective sigh of relief. At the high table, the royal family enjoyed the spectacle, their own guards relaxed, their faces showing genuine happiness, a rare sight in the turbulent world of Westeros. Jacaerys, his eyes bright, conversed animatedly with Lucerys, who ate with a healthy appetite, a true sign of his recovery and renewed vitality. Aegon, though still quiet, was visibly enjoying the rare familial warmth, a shy smile on his lips. Baela and Rhaena giggled together, sharing whispered secrets and stealing extra sweet tarts from the platters, their youthful spirits unburdened. Cregan and Visenya, while participating in the general revelry, still found their own quiet space within the chaos. They would often lean in, their voices low, sharing an observation, a wry comment, a shared glance that spoke volumes, a private world within the public feast. This southern feasting is boisterous, Visenya murmured to Cregan, her voice barely audible over the din, a playful glint in her eyes. Unlike the stoic celebrations of the north. Do you find it overwhelming? Cregan chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through her. They have much to celebrate, little dragon. And perhaps, they need more noise to drown out the echoes of what has passed. Or perhaps they simply enjoy their wine more freely. Visenya's smile softened. And you, my Prince of Winterfell? Are you content with this boisterousness? Content enough, Cregan admitted, his gaze meeting hers, a rare, soft warmth in his eyes that few ever saw. Especially with you by my side. It makes even the loudest feast bearable. His hand found hers beneath the table, his fingers intertwining with hers, a silent, powerful connection amidst the joyous uproar. You're very charming tonight, Prince Cregan, Visenya teased, her eyes sparkling. Is this the famed northern courtesy I've heard so little about? Only for those who deserve it, Princess, Cregan countered, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. And you, it seems, deserve a great deal of it. Careful, Visenya whispered, a playful warning in her tone. Such words might make a girl's head spin. My intention exactly, Cregan replied, his gaze unwavering, a hint of mischief in his eyes. Perhaps then you'd lean on me more often. They spoke of Asgard, of the progress in the north, of the resilience of his people, their shared history, and their future. Visenya recounted the new inventions, the hardening of their defenses, the sense of purpose that had settled over the Stark lands. Cregan, in turn, spoke of the subtle intrigues in the south, the machinations of the maesters, the insidious influence of the faith. He spoke of the quiet purges, the methodical dismantling of old power structures, a grim satisfaction in his voice. You have been busy, Visenya observed, her voice low. Building a new order, even as you fight a war. It seems you relish the chaos. It is all part of the same fight, Cregan replied, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. To ensure a future where such chaos cannot again be unleashed. To secure the Queen's peace, truly. And to ensure no one ever threatens what is mine. His gaze lingered on her, the unspoken meaning clear. And what, pray tell, is yours, Prince? Visenya challenged softly, a daring glint in her eyes. You, little dragon, Cregan murmured, his voice a low rumble, his eyes never leaving hers. And the peace we will build together. Demon, catching a glimpse of their quiet intimacy, merely smirked. He had always respected strength, and he saw it in abundance between his niece and the Northern Lord. He had seen the way Cregan's eyes followed Visenya, a possessiveness that Demon understood perfectly, a mirror of his own nature. Rhaenyra, meanwhile, surveyed her family with a sense of completion. Demon, by her side, the fierce warrior who had secured her west. Jacaerys and Lucerys, healthy and strong, her heirs. Baela and Rhaena, her stepsons, a vibrant presence. And Cregan, the steadfast rock, who had brought her daughter home and ensured her victory. And Visenya, her courageous daughter, returned to her fold. The dessert course arrived, a cascade of sweet delights. Honeyed cakes, fruit tarts, puddings drenched in cream, and exotic sweets brought from the free cities. The richness added another layer to the already opulent feast. As the last of the sweetmeats were being cleared, Queen Rhaenyra rose once more, her goblet held high. A profound silence descended upon the hall, all eyes turning to the Queen. My loyal lords, my beloved family, Rhaenyra's voice rang out, clear and resonant, carrying to every corner of the vast hall. Tonight, we celebrate victory. We celebrate reunion. But tonight, we also look to the future. To the bonds that will secure this realm, and this dynasty, for generations to come. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the high table, then settling on Cregan and Visenya. A warm, loving smile graced her lips. My daughter, Princess Visenya, has returned to us from the Asgard, Rhaenyra declared, her voice filled with a mother's pride. And she has brought with her not just courage and wisdom, but a bond forged in the fires of shared purpose, and the quiet strength of true affection. A ripple of murmurs went through the hall, a collective understanding beginning to dawn. It is with immense joy and the full blessing of the crown, Rhaenyra announced, her voice ringing with authority and happiness, that I announce the betrothal of my daughter, Princess Visenya Targaryen, to Prince Cregan Stark, and Prince of Asgard. A gasp, then a roar of applause erupted, louder and more enthusiastic than any before. Lords stood, clapped, and cheered. The Northmen present stomped their feet, a deep, resonant rumble of approval that shook the hall. Cups were raised, shouts of, to the prince and princess. And, to the wolf and the dragon, filled the air. Visenya's cheeks flushed a delicate rose, and she glanced at Cregan, a shy, happy smile on her face. Cregan, for his part, allowed a rare, genuine smile to spread across his features, his eyes warm as he met her gaze. He raised his own goblet in acknowledgement of the cheers. The minstrels, sensing the mood, struck up a lively, romantic tune. Rhaenyra, with a knowing look, gestured to Cregan and Visenya. Cregan, without a word, rose from his seat. He offered his hand to Visenya. She took it, her fingers intertwining with his, and they moved to the center of the hall, the space clearing around them as the other guests made way. The music swelled, a graceful, flowing melody. Cregan, usually so stoic, so formidable in battle, moved with a surprising grace. He was not a dancer of courtly flourishes, but his movements were strong, deliberate, and utterly focused on Visenya. Visenya, for her part, moved with an innate elegance, her blue gown swirling around her. She followed his lead, her eyes never leaving his, a silent conversation passing between them in every step, every turn. Their dance was not a performance for the crowd, but a private moment shared in public. It was a dance of two souls finally finding their rhythm together. Cregan's hand on her waist was firm, possessive, yet gentle. Visenya's hand rested lightly on his shoulder, her touch a silent promise. They moved as one, a seamless blend of northern strength and Targaryen grace. The other guests watched, captivated by the sight of the formidable wolf of Winterfell and the beautiful dragon princess, their union a symbol of hope for a new, united realm. The dance spoke of their shared journey, their battles, their quiet moments, and the profound connection that bound them. As the music softened, and their dance came to a gentle halt, they remained in the center of the hall, their hands still clasped, their eyes locked. The applause was thunderous, a heartfelt roar of approval from a realm eager for peace and new beginnings. Later, as the feast began to wind down, and the last of the revelers prepared to retire, Cregan and Visenya slipped away from the lingering crowds. They found a quiet exit, making their way into the moonlit gardens of the Red Keep. The cool night air was a welcome balm after the heat and noise of the great hall. The scent of night-blooming jasmine and damp earth filled the air, a soothing contrast to the recent smells of roasted meats and wine. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, their footsteps soft on the gravel paths. The sounds of the distant city, muted now, were a mere hum. Cregan's hand found Visenya's, and their fingers intertwined, a natural, comforting fit. They walked in comfortable silence for a time, simply enjoying the quiet solitude, the gentle presence of each other. That was quite an evening, Visenya finally said, her voice soft, a hint of amusement in it. My mother certainly knows how to make an announcement. Cregan chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. She is direct. I appreciate that. He squeezed her hand. Were you surprised? A little, Visenya admitted, turning her head to look at him. The moonlight illuminated her face, making her eyes seem even deeper violet. Though perhaps I shouldn't have been. I suppose it was inevitable, wasn't it? Cregan said, his gaze steady, pulling her gently to a halt beneath the canopy of a weeping willow. Its branches swayed softly in the breeze. He turned to face her fully, his hand still in his. You know it does, she confessed, her voice earnest, her eyes shining in the moonlight. I wouldn't have returned from Asgard if it didn't. There is no one else. For me, not after you conquered me. His thumb stroked the back of her hand, a tender gesture. And for me, Visenya, he responded, his voice low and sincere. You are the only one. The one who makes even the south bearable. And who makes me feel something other than grim purpose. Visenya laughed softly, leaning her head against his shoulder. Such compliments, my hungry wolf. You'll make me think you've gone soft. Is the cold north finally getting to your head? Never soft, Cregan murmured, his arm coming around her waist, pulling her closer. Just warmer. You have a way of melting the ice, Visenya. A very dangerous way. And you have a way of grounding me, she replied, her fingers tracing the tough leather of his doublet. Of reminding me that sometimes, strength isn't just about fire and fury, but about quiet, unyielding rock. They stood there, wrapped in each other's presence, the quiet night a witness to their unspoken vows. The sounds of the city faded further, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant cry of a night bird. So, my prince, Visenya teased, looking up at him, her eyes dancing. Now that we're officially bound, what are your expectations? Will you make me trade my gowns for furs permanently? Cregan's lips curved into a slow, tantalizing smile. Only if you promise to warm my keep in the long nights. And perhaps teach me a thing or two about how to ride a she-dragon. Oh, I can certainly teach you about she-dragon, Visenya purred, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. But I fear your northern sensibilities might not be prepared for the heat. I am a Stark, princess, Cregan countered, his voice a low rumble. I fear neither, especially not with a Targaryen at my side. He paused, his gaze deepening. And perhaps you'll find the quiet strength of the north, and a Stark's unwavering loyalty, more to your liking than all the gilded cages of the south. Perhaps I already have, she whispered, her eyes meeting his, a genuine warmth in her gaze. More than you know. He bent his head then, and kissed her. It was a kiss of deep commitment, of shared purpose, a silent promise under the watchful eye of the moon. It was a kiss that sealed their alliance, not just of houses, but of souls, a gentle flame in the cool night. The night air was cool, but their embrace was warm. They knew the challenges ahead were immense, the realm still fragile, the enemy's cunning. But for this moment, in the quiet solitude of the royal gardens, under the pale moonlight, they were just Cregan and Visenya. And that was, for now, enough. 11 comments 0 vote. Deal. 134 AC. Third person POV. 2 days after the celebratory feast, the Great Hall of the Red Keep, which had so recently echoed with laughter and music, now held a different kind of intensity. The morning light, filtering through the high windows, illuminated dust motes dancing in the air, a stark contrast to the dazzling candlelight of the previous night. Queen Rhaenyra sat at the head of the long table, her expression composed, yet serious. Beside her, Daemon Targaryen leaned back in his chair, his eyes keen and watchful, his usual swagger tempered by the gravity of the occasion. Opposite them, Cregan Stark sat, as ever, in his stark northern attire. He radiated a quiet power, a sense of unyielding resolve that filled the space. The air was thick with anticipation. This was a private meeting, one of immense significance, far removed from the public celebrations. This was where the true debts were paid, where the future of the realm would be quietly shaped. Rhaenyra began, her voice calm and measured. Prince Cregan, she said, her gaze fixed on him. We owe you a debt that words alone cannot repay. You brought the north when others faltered. You secured Aldtown. You delivered Darren. You cleansed King's Landing. And you brought my daughter home. She paused, a grateful smile touching her lips. The dragon is on her throne, and the realm is saved, in no small part, because of your strength. Cregan inclined his head, a silent acknowledgement of her words. He offered no false modesty. He knew the truth of what he had done. We have discussed your impending marriage to Visenya, Rhaenyra continued, her voice gaining a more business-like tone. An alliance that will bind our houses for generations. But I asked you here today to speak of other matters. Her gaze sharpened. Have you considered, Prince Cregan, what you wish for, in return for the help you have provided for taking down the Hightowers? Beyond the marriage, beyond the honor and the alliance. Daemon shifted in his seat, his eyes on Cregan, eager to hear his demands. He knew Cregan Stark was not a man to act purely out of altruism. There was always a price. Cregan met Rhaenyra's gaze, his own eyes cool and direct. He did not hesitate. His thoughts had been long prepared, meticulously considered. Your Grace, Cregan began, his voice steady, for the future, I desire 2 things, primarily. He held up a finger. First, I wish for dragon eggs. Or, failing that, the chance for our children, Visenya's and mine, to bond with dragons in the future. Rhaenyra's brow furrowed slightly. Dragon eggs. Or bonds for your children. Don't you already have ice dragons, Prince Cregan? We do, Your Grace, Cregan confirmed, a flicker of something ancient in his eyes. The ice dragons are formidable beasts, true. They guard Asgard. They are deeply connected to the north. But, he continued, his voice firm, we do not have fire dragons. The Targaryens possess the fire, the fury, the very essence of conquest and dominion. To wield both elements, that would be a power unmatched in Westeros. Rhaenyra nodded slowly, a contemplative expression on her face. The strategic disadvantage of a Stark with fire dragons, but a Targaryen Stark lineage wielding both ice and fire, was undeniable. It would forge an unbreakable bond, indeed. Very well, Rhaenyra conceded, her voice softer than before. It is a bold request, Prince Cregan, but one I understand. We will ensure that dragon eggs are made available, and that your future children with Visenya are given every opportunity to bond with them, but I want your word that they will not be used to attack southern castles or armies, they can be used to defend Asgard. Cregan nods his head, he has a rare, subtle hint of satisfaction in his demeanor. He had secured a monumental future for his house. He held up a second finger. And secondly, Your Grace, I desire the islands of the Three Sisters. The temperature in the room seemed to drop perceptibly. Daemon's relaxed posture vanished. Rhaenyra's eyes narrowed. The Three Sisters, Rhaenyra repeated, her voice incredulous. Prince Cregan, those islands are sworn to the Vale. They are part of the Arryn Dominion. We cannot give you that, Daemon interjected, his voice sharp, losing his composure. The Vale is a loyal kingdom. Lady Arryn has remained true. She would be gravely offended. She would rise in protest. Rhaenyra nodded vehemently. Indeed, the Arryns will be wroth with us if we do that. It would destabilize the entire eastern coast. We cannot simply seize our loyal house's lands, no matter how much we owe you. Cregan remained impassive throughout their protests, allowing them to vent their immediate objections. He had anticipated this. He nodded slowly, acknowledging their arguments. You are correct, Your Grace. Prince Daemon, the Arryns are loyal, and we do not wish to alienate them. He paused, a glint entering his eyes. How about this, then? A different arrangement. A pragmatic one, for the benefit of the crown and Asgard. Rhaenyra and Daemon exchanged a look, intrigued despite their initial alarm. Cregan was not one to make demands lightly, nor to back down easily. If, in the future, Cregan proposed, his voice measured, the pirates from the Three Sisters attack northern ships, raiding our merchant vessels, preying upon our trade routes, and we, the North, decide to decimate them, to utterly crush their piracy and take the islands under our banner to secure our own seas, the Iron Throne will turn a blind eye to it. He let the words hang in the air, allowing their full implication to sink in. No open conquest ordered by the crown, no direct confrontation with the Arryns. But a subtle, implied permission for the Starks to act in their own defense, and in doing so, expand their influence southward. Rhaenyra and Daemon looked at each other again. This was a concession, a loophole. It was a potential slight to the Arryns, yes, but framed as a necessary measure against piracy, something even the Vale could not truly object to if the crown approved. It offered Cregan what he wanted, without directly violating the realm's laws or the loyalty of a key ally. It was a dangerous, but brilliant, compromise. To this, after a moment of consideration, both Rhaenyra and Daemon nodded. A silent, unspoken agreement passing between them. The Three Sisters, in time, would fall under the wolf's shadow. With the matters of compensation settled, the conversation shifted to more joyous topics. Now, Rhaenyra said, a lighter tone entering her voice, about the wedding. Cregan and Visenya's marriage. When should it be held, and who should we invite? Daemon smirked. As soon as possible, I should think. The sooner the alliance is truly sealed, the better. Indeed, Rhaenyra agreed. And as for guests, we must invite every loyal lord, of course. Those who fought with us, and those who swore fealty afterwards. It will be a grand affair, a symbol of our new reign's strength. I will send a raven to Asgard immediately, Rhaenyra announced, her eyes softening. They must be there. Your kin should be here. It would not be right otherwise. And I believe the king of Asgard will be eager to see his grandsons wed to a princess. And, Rhaenyra added, a nostalgic smile touching her lips, I will also send to my dear friend, Mordred. It has been a while since I have seen her. Her presence would bring me great joy. They then discussed other arrangements. The feast, the ceremonies, the preparations for such a monumental event. Seamstresses would be commissioned, kitchens would be filled with provisions. The Red Keep would once again be abuzz with activity, but this time, with joyful purpose. The conversation shifted again, this time towards the future of the Targaryen dynasty itself. Cregan, ever forward-thinking, ever pragmatic, had long considered the inherent weaknesses of the crown. Your Grace, Cregan began, his voice taking on a grave tone. I have given much thought to the future. To the strength of House Targaryen, and the stability of the Iron Throne. Rhaenyra and Daemon listened intently, sensing the shift in mood, recognizing Cregan's seriousness. This war, Cregan continued, has proven a harsh lesson. The Targaryens' greatest strength, their dragons, were almost destroyed due to infighting. If this war were to prolong, if a similar situation arose in the future and dragged on for years, the dragons would be dead for sure. He paused, allowing the grim truth to settle. And House Targaryen would lose its strongest asset. Its very foundation of power. It would become like any other noble house, susceptible to any rebellion, any rival claimant. This all happened, Cregan stated, his voice devoid of emotion, simply stating a fact, because Viserys was a weak king. Rhaenyra immediately tried to object, her loyalty to her father rising instinctively. Cregan, my father was not weak. He was kind, he was loving, he. But Cregan stopped her, holding up a hand, his gaze firm, uncompromising. Your Grace, I meant no disrespect to his person. He was a good king. A kind man. But he was weak nonetheless. His kindness was his undoing. He was more kind-hearted than fierce. That, Cregan stated emphatically, was what led to the vipers that have infested King's Landing. The Hightowers, the Maesters, the Faith. They took advantage of his gentle nature, his desire for peace at any cost. He leaned forward, his voice lowering, yet no less impactful. It is a good thing that he was merely good. Imagine, Your Grace, if there were a king who was a slave to his desires. A king utterly corrupted by power, driven by greed and lust. Imagine if he sired a dozen bastards, scattered across the realm, and then, in his folly, began legitimizing them. Imagine the chaos that would ensue. The endless rival claims, the feuds, the utter destruction of House Targaryen's legitimacy. That, Cregan concluded, his voice chillingly stark, would be the true horror for House Targaryen. A far worse fate than any civil war driven by a clear claim. Rhaenyra and Daemon listened, their faces growing contemplative, a deep understanding dawning in their eyes. The horror of such a scenario, the instability it would sow, was terrifyingly real. They both nodded slowly, acknowledging the grim truth of Cregan's words. To prevent such a future, Cregan pressed on, seizing the moment, House Targaryen must safeguard itself. Not just through strong kings, but through strong institutions. I propose a change, a return to something akin to ancient Valyrian ways, but tempered for Westeros. He outlined his radical proposal. Make a council consisting of every Targaryen who is of age. Like in old Valyria, where the freehold was governed by a collective of dragonlords, not a single monarch. This council, Cregan explained, his vision clear, should be the one to elect the king. When a king dies, the council convenes, and they choose the most suitable Targaryen to rule, not necessarily the eldest child. Furthermore, he continued, his gaze firm, they should also be able to remove the king if he is deemed unfit for rule. If a king proves to be cruel, or foolish, or truly weak, or a slave to his desires, the council should have the power to depose him. And finally, any major decision taken by the king should pass through this council. Not every decree, not every daily matter, but truly major decisions affecting the realm's peace, its laws, its very future. Rhaenyra and Daemon listened, their expressions a mixture of shock and thought. This was an unthinkable alteration to the very fabric of the Westerosi monarchy. But, Prince Cregan, Rhaenyra stammered, the king's power would be weakened because of this. The monarch would be beholden to others. Cregan nodded without hesitation. Yes, Your Grace. The king's power will be tempered. But in tempering it, you make it stronger, more resilient. He will think twice before making a decision. He will consider the counsel of his family, of his peers. He offered an example that hit close to home. Consider the time Jaehaerys the Conciliator, in his stupidity, thought giving gift to the wall was a vice. All because he was too short-sighted to see the true threat of the North. Daemon clenched his fist at the mention of Jaehaerys's past foolishness regarding the wall, a source of resentment between the North and the Crown. He remained silent, however, his eyes fixed on Cregan. That decision, Cregan pressed, led to rebellion. It caused immense suffering. If a council had been in place to temper his foolishness, to advise him against such a drastic, short-sighted measure, perhaps it could have been avoided. What, Cregan continued, his voice lowering, would happen if in the future there is a Targaryen king who is devoted to the faith so much that he bans Targaryen traditional marriages? A pious fool who forbids sister marrying brother, for the sake of the seven. Rhaenyra and Daemon's faces became deeply contemplative. The memory of the Faith militants' uprising and the war between the Crown and the Faith, only resolved by Jaehaerys's compromises, hung heavy in the air. A king forbidding their ancient customs was a horrifying thought, one that would tear the dynasty apart from within. See, Cregan said, his voice quiet but firm. That is why it is necessary to have a king or queen who is not corrupted by power, who is not swayed by fanaticism, who is tempered by the wisdom of his own kin. He then contrasted this with the ways of his own people. In Asgard, we don't have that problem. We are hardened men. We don't have a penchant for politics or word games like in the South. We are direct. Our traditions are clear. There, the king always leads the army from the front, Cregan concluded, his eyes holding a steely pride. He does not command from the rear, sending others to die in his stead. He faces the threats himself. That is the true strength of a monarch. Rhaenyra and Daemon remained silent for a long moment, processing Cregan's radical vision. It was a complete paradigm shift, challenging centuries of Westerosi monarchy. Finally, Rhaenyra spoke, her voice measured. Prince Cregan, your words, they are profound. And they bear much weight. This is a matter of such immense importance, it requires deep consideration. Daemon nodded in agreement. We will think about it, Prince Cregan. We will discuss it thoroughly. This is not a decision to be made lightly. Cregan merely nodded, his expression unreadable. He had planted the seed. Now, it was up to them to decide whether it would grow. 10 comments 0 vote. Wedding. 135 AC. Third person POV. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright over King's Landing, a crisp breeze carrying the scent of salt from the Blackwater Bay and the sweet perfume of the Red Keep's gardens. The sun, a rare and welcome sight after weeks of political turmoil, cast long, benevolent shadows across the castle grounds. Preparations had been underway for days, meticulous and grand. The chosen site for the ceremony was the Red Keep's own Godswood, a small, yet sacred space. At its heart stood a venerable weirwood tree. Though not as ancient or as vast as the weirwood in Winterfell, it was still a powerful presence. Its pale bark, carved with the watchful eyes of the old gods, stood in stark contrast to the red stone of the castle. The garden itself had been adorned, a delicate balance struck between northern austerity and southern splendor. Banners bearing the direwolf of Stark and the three-headed dragon of Targaryen fluttered side by side from tall poles. Blue winter roses, a symbol of the north, were intricately woven with red and gold summer roses, representing the south, creating garlands that draped across stone archways and along the pathways leading to the weirwood. Candles, housed in delicate lanterns, hung from tree branches, promising a soft, ethereal glow when evening fell, though the ceremony was planned for midday. The air hummed with a quiet anticipation, a profound sense of destiny unfolding. The first guests to arrive were the lords and ladies of the south. They came dressed in their finest silks, velvets, and brocades, a riot of colors against the green of the gardens. Jewels sparkled, and the air filled with the soft rustle of expensive fabrics and hushed, expectant murmurs. They mingled, exchanging polite greetings, their eyes darting towards the sacred tree, eager witnesses to this unprecedented union of fire and ice. Then came the Northmen, distinct in their practical, darker attire. Their furs and leathers stood out, their faces often weather-beaten and stoic, yet their eyes held a fierce pride, a deep sense of loyalty to their king. Roddy Dustin stood tall, his gaze sweeping the crowd, a silent guardian. And then, a different kind of arrival, drawing curious glances and hushed whispers, the kin from Asgard. King Antares, the ruler of Asgard, had remained behind to govern his own distant realm, a solemn duty that tethered him to his throne. But all other members of his family, those closest to Cregan, had made the arduous journey to the south. They moved with a quiet, almost otherworldly grace, their attire a stark contrast to both northern and southern fashions. They nodded curtly to the southern lords, a silent acknowledgement of their presence. And then, Rhaenyra's face lit up with an unfeigned joy as she saw another, much anticipated guest. Mordred Skull, the Lady of Moat Cailin, Rhaenyra's trusted friend and confidant, had arrived with her own family. Mordred was not adorned in the typical finery of a southern lady. She wore practical, yet elegant, dark leathers, embroidered with subtle wolf motifs, her long, dark brown hair braided simply. She carried herself with an air of quiet power, a dragonrider's inherent confidence. She was accompanied by her husband, Lord Benjen Skull, a tall, strong man, and their 2 children, a boy and a girl of age, their faces bright with curiosity. Rhaenyra rushed to embrace Mordred, a deep bond of sisterhood evident in their shared laughter and tears. Red, you came. It has been too long, my friend. Nothing would keep me from your daughter's wedding, Rhae, Mordred replied, her eyes warm as they met Rhaenyra's. Especially not one such as this. Her gaze flickered to the weirwood, a silent acknowledgement of the blending of old traditions. The crowd parted, a respectful silence falling as the principals of the ceremony began their procession. First, Cregan Stark. He walked with his customary measured stride, a picture of quiet strength and unwavering purpose. He wore the traditional dark leathers of a Stark, but over it, a fine cloak of dark gray wool, clasped with a dire wolf sigil carved from weirwood. His normally stern features were softened by a subtle excitement, a profound sense of anticipation. His gaze scanned the faces of his family, his people from Asgard, a silent promise to them all. His eyes finally settled on the weirwood, the ancient heart of his faith, beneath which his vows would be given. Then, the murmurs swelled once more as Visenya began her procession. She walked on her stepfather's arm, King Consort Daemon Targaryen, who beamed with pride. Visenya was a vision of radiant beauty, a true princess of both ice and fire. Her gown was a masterpiece, a subtle fusion of her two heritages. It was made of shimmering silver silk, the color of moonlight on snow, with intricate gold embroidery depicting dragons interwoven with dire wolves. Her silver gold hair, now braided with delicate strands of blue and white ribbon, cascaded down her back. A simple circlet of finely wrought silver, shaped like interlocking wolf and dragon heads, rested upon her brow. Her eyes, those deep, intelligent violet eyes, held a soft glow, a reflection of the profound emotions swirling within her. Her composure was perfect, a regal poise learned from her mother. Yet, beneath it, a current of excitement thrummed. She glanced at the assembled faces. Her mother, Demon, her brothers Jakaris and Luceris, their faces alight with happiness. Jakaris gave her a bright, encouraging smile, a silent gesture of sibling affection. Luceris, still a little frail but recovering beautifully, offered a shy, genuine grin, happy for his sister. Demon, typically aloof, watched Visenya with a rare tenderness, a hint of his pride in his fierce niece. He offered her a subtle, approving nod, a silent acknowledgement of her strength and her choice. And then, Visenya's gaze met Cregan's. He stood waiting for her, beneath the ancient weirwood, his presence a steadfast anchor in the midst of the flickering emotions. A private, shared smile passed between them, a moment of profound recognition. The world seemed to narrow, encompassing only the two of them. They stood before the weirwood tree, its blood-red leaves a stark, vibrant canopy overhead. The ancient, carved face on its trunk seemed to watch with silent, knowing eyes, a guardian of promises made. Rickard Stark is officiating the wedding. The air was filled with a palpable sense of solemnity, a profound quietude. Even the rustle of leaves seemed to soften, as if the very garden held its breath. Prince Rickard Stark raised his hands, his voice, though aged, still carrying a resonant authority that silenced the gentle rustling of the wind. Who comes before the old gods this night? Demon Targaryen stepped forward, his face softened by the solemnity of the occasion. Princess Visenya, of the House Targaryen, comes here to be wed. A woman grown, trueborn, and noble. She comes to beg the blessing of the gods. Who comes to claim her? Cregan's gaze remained locked on Visenya. Cregan then turned to Rickard Stark. Prince Cregan of House Stark. Rickard Stark's gaze turned towards Demon Targaryen, a respectful nod accompanying his question. Who gives her? Demon Targaryen's voice boomed slightly in the quiet godswood. King Demon of the House Targaryen, who is her father? Princess Visenya Targaryen, Torrhen then said, his gaze turning to her, do you take this man to be your husband, to share his joys and sorrows, to stand by his side in times of peace and peril, for all the days the old gods grant you? Visenya took Cregan's hand in his, her grip firm and unwavering. I do. Rickard then shifted his gaze to Cregan and asked, Prince Cregan Stark, do you take this woman to be your wife, to cherish her, to honor her, and to protect her against all the darkness that may come, for all the days the old gods grant you? Cregan took Visenya's hands in his. Her emerald gaze softened as she looked up at him, and a sense of belonging settled within him. I do. Cregan took the cloak, his fingers brushing the soft fabric. With slow, deliberate movements, he draped it over Visenya's shoulders, carefully replacing the Targaryen cloak she had worn. It was a powerful symbolic gesture, the shedding of one's maiden cloak, and the acceptance of a new one, signifying her new house. As the fur settled on her shoulders, Visenya felt a warmth spread through her, more than just the fabric. It was a sense of belonging, a feeling of coming home. A deep, collective sigh of relief, then a wave of joyous murmurs, rippled through the assembled guests. Cregan's eyes, dark and intense, met Visenya's. A slow, gentle smile touched his lips, a truly rare sight. He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing her skin. And then, he kissed her. It was a kiss of connection, of shared journey and future. A kiss that spoke of strength meeting strength, of two powerful souls finally finding their true home in each other. It was a promise, unspoken but deeply felt, of a lifetime together. Visenya returned the kiss with equal passion, a profound sense of rightness settling over her. This was it. This was her path. This was her Cregan. When they finally broke apart, the garden erupted in a wave of thunderous applause and joyous shouts. The cheers were deafening, echoing through the Red Keep grounds. Lords pounded their chests, ladies wept tears of joy. Rhaenyra rushed forward, tears streaming down her face, her eyes shining with relief and overwhelming happiness. She embraced her daughter in a warm hug. My daughter, she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. May the gods bless this union. Demon, standing beside Rhaenyra, offered a rare, genuine smile. He clapped Cregan on the shoulder. Well done, Wolf. You've tamed a dragon. He gave Visenya a warm, paternal hug. And you, little dragon. You've chosen well. Jakaris and Luceris pushed through the well-wishers, their faces beaming. Jacares clapped Cregan on the back. Welcome to the family, brother. Lucerys, his eyes bright, hugged Visenya fiercely, then offered Cregan a shy, heartfelt handshake. The Asgardian delegation approached, their usual solemnity replaced by expressions of quiet approval. Prince Rickard Stark offered a curt nod, his respect evident. Barthogen Cregan's elder brother congratulated both of them, and Gillian Stark Cregan's mother hugged them both and wished both of them well. Mordred Skoll, her dark eyes gleaming, embraced Visenya with a strong, sisterly hug. Congratulations, my dear. May your bond be as strong as Dragonsteel. She then turned to Cregan, offering him a firm, approving handshake. Take care of her, Cregan. She's precious. Cregan's lips curved into a slight smile. I intend to, Aunt. The air was thick with the scent of flowers and the joyous cacophony of celebration. Servants circulated with trays of chilled Dornish wine and honeyed mead. Musicians struck up a livelier tune, preparing for the grand feast that would follow in the Great Hall. Cregan and Visenya stood together, a united front, receiving the congratulations of all who approached. Their hands remained clasped, a silent testament to their new status, their deep connection visible to all. Visenya felt an overwhelming sense of belonging, a peace settling in her heart. She was a Targaryen, a daughter of dragons, but now, she was also a Stark, tied to the ancient power of the North, to the man who stood by her side. Cregan, typically so reserved, found himself smiling more freely than he had in years. The warmth in Visenya's hand, the steady beat of her heart next to his, was a comfort deeper than any he had ever known. He had secured his future, and in doing so, found his truest self. The wedding ceremony, a blend of ancient traditions and new promises, concluded in a wave of triumph. The sun, high overhead, seemed to bless their union. Their journey together had truly begun. 12 comments 0 vote. Time passes. The year is 262 AC, a century and 3 decades removed from the tumultuous dance of the dragons. Time, in its relentless march, had reshaped the very landscape of Westeros, carving out an era vastly different from the one that preceded it. The South, once a realm of squalor and entrenched tradition, stood transformed, a testament to the enduring legacy of a queen who defied all expectations. Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen had sat on the Iron Throne for 70 long years, her reign a beacon of change and unprecedented progress. Her ascension, hard-won through fire and blood, had ushered in a golden period, a time of transformation that had fundamentally altered the social, political, and even geographical fabric of the realm. One of her earliest and most impactful initiatives came just 3 years into her reign. Recognizing the stifling grip of the Citadel and the pervasive, often detrimental, influence of the Maesters, Rhaenyra sought to revolutionize education. She established a grand institution in the heart of the Riverlands, the College of Dragonhold. Its very name, a tribute to her lineage and her power, echoed throughout the South. Dragonhold was not merely a school, it was a beacon of enlightened learning, a stark contrast to the archaic traditions of Aldtown. All future lords, ladies, and common folk of the South, from the Stormlands to the Westerlands, from the Reach to the Crownlands, were allowed to attend Dragonhold for their education. The curriculum was broad, encompassing governance, history, warfare, economics, and various sciences, but critically, it was free from the biases and hidden agendas that had long plagued the Maesters. The rules at Dragonhold, perhaps surprisingly to many Southerners, were modeled after the austere yet effective discipline of Winterhold in the North. Meritocracy was paramount, practical skills were emphasized, a strict code of conduct, valuing honor and duty, was enforced. This bold move had a lasting impact. Over the decades, generations of Southern nobility were shaped by Dragonhold's teachings, instilling in them a more pragmatic, less corruptible worldview. The Citadel, that ancient seat of learning and influence, had been utterly dismantled during Rhaenyra's early reign. Its vast libraries were dispersed and now transferred to Harrenhal, its Grand Maester Order disbanded. Maesters, once omnipresent in every castle, were no more in Westeros. Their quiet, insidious influence had been completely eradicated, replaced by the Crown's own, more loyal scholars and advisors. The faith, too, had suffered a catastrophic loss of power during Rhaenyra's time. The disappearing policy of the early years, enforced by Cregan Stark and his warriors, had broken its initial defiance. Over the subsequent decades, through a series of subtle decrees and strategic limitations on its wealth and temporal authority, the faith had lost over 90% of its former power. Its grand septs still stood, its septons and septas still preached, but their influence on secular matters was almost non-existent. They no longer commanded armies, held vast lands, or openly challenged the crown. They were spiritual guides, nothing more. During Rhaenyra's transformative reign, a monumental agreement was forged with the Starks, an alliance built on shared vision and mutual benefit. This pact led to the construction of a groundbreaking railway line, a colossal undertaking that stretched from the strategic choke point of Moat Cailin all the way south to the distant castle of Storm's End. This railway was a testament to northern ingenuity and southern ambition. It facilitated unprecedented trade, transport, and communication across the vast continent. The Iron Throne, in this arrangement, secured a significant 30% of the substantial profits generated by the railway, while Asgard, the primary architects and maintainers, retained a formidable 70%. It was a clear indication of Asgard's economic might and indispensable role. Perhaps one of Rhaenyra's most enduring legacies, however, was the establishment of the Dragon Council. Founded approximately 20 years into her reign, this unique body was born from the wisdom gleaned from the Dance of the Dragons itself, and Cregan Stark's prescient warnings. This council, comprised of all adult Targaryens of age, served as a vital check on the monarch's power. It possessed the authority to elect the next king or queen, ensuring the most capable Targaryen ascended the throne, rather than merely the eldest. Crucially, the Dragon Council also held the power to remove a monarch deemed unfit to rule, a revolutionary concept that had prevented any tyrannical or incompetent Targaryen from holding absolute sway. Any major decision taken by the king or queen now required the council's approval, tempering monarchical whims with collective wisdom. 20 years into her reign, the alliance with Asgard bore its most significant fruit in the realm of territorial expansion. The notorious islands of the Three Sisters, long a haven for pirates and a thorn in the side of northern trade, were finally brought to heel. After a series of particularly brazen attacks on northern merchant ships, the Asgardian fleet, swift and merciless, moved in. They decimated the pirate strongholds, capturing the islands with ruthless efficiency. The Arryns, to whom the Three Sisters were nominally sworn, were, predictably, not happy. They appealed to the Iron Throne for justice, demanding the return of their lost territories. But Queen Rhaenyra, with Daemon at her side and Cregan's earlier compact in mind, gave them a cold, unyielding response. There have been multiple times, Lord Arryn, her decree read, when the Iron Throne demanded that the Vale keep the Three Sisters in check. We urged you to purge them of pirates, to secure the shipping lanes, as it was your duty. You did not heed our suggestions. You allowed the piracy to fester. Now, you pay your price. The Iron Throne turned a blind eye. The Three Sisters became a new dominion of Asgard, their strategic location now serving the interests of northern trade and the crown. King's Landing itself had undergone a staggering transformation. The squalor and chaos of its past were but a distant, unpleasant memory. The city was now a well-designed and meticulously built metropolis, a stark contrast to the sprawling, unsanitary capital it once was. Flea Bottom, once the epitome of urban misery, was no more. Its inhabitants had been systematically relocated to new, clean, well-ordered districts built with modern sanitation and sturdy housing. Wide, paved streets replaced narrow, filthy alleys. Public gardens and open spaces punctuated the urban landscape. Rhaenyra had not merely rebuilt King's Landing, she had expanded it. A second, formidable wall had been constructed around the thriving metropolis, encompassing the newly built districts and securing the expanding city. It was a symbol of her foresight and the enduring strength of her rule. Naturally, there had been opposition to some of Rhaenyra's more radical measures. Certain conservative lords, steeped in tradition, had vocally opposed the dismantling of the citadel and the severe curtailment of the faith's power. But their defiance was met with swift, decisive force. With dragons at her back, Rhaenyra had shown these recalcitrant lords their place. A single display of Dracarys, a single threat of aerial retribution, was usually enough to curb their enthusiasm. Those who persisted were shown no quarter. All in all, Queen Rhaenyra's 70-year reign could truly be considered a golden period for Westeros. It was an era of unprecedented progress, strong governance, and a realm united under a crown that had learned from its past mistakes. Cregan Stark, the legendary Wolf of Winterfell, had indeed returned to Asgard after 10 momentous years spent in the south. His time in King's Landing was etched into the annals of history, a decade of profound influence and chilling efficiency. He and his 300 warriors who had marched south with him had become figures of legend. They were known as the Wolf Pack, a force as feared as any dragon. During his decade in the south, Cregan had earned many monikers, each speaking volumes about his character and his impact. The Hour of the Wolf was perhaps the most infamous. It referred to the swift, merciless retribution he had meted out to every lord, knight, and whisperer who had a hand in the usurpation of Rhaenyra. There were no long trials, no public spectacles, only swift, brutal justice. He showed every lord, from the highest to the lowest, that northern justice was swift, unforgiving, and utterly final. His executions were a stark reminder that treachery would not be tolerated. Beyond his grim duties, Cregan had been instrumental in the establishment of Dragonhold. He had provided the foundational principles drawn from Winterhold, ensuring its rigorous curriculum and disciplined environment. His presence during its early years instilled a sense of order and seriousness that defined its future. He was also the architect behind many of the crucial agreements made between the Iron Throne and Asgard, including the Railway Pact and the future understanding regarding the Three Sisters. His strategic mind and unyielding will had shaped the economic and military future of both realms. After 10 years, with King's Landing secure, the realm stabilized, and his vision largely implemented, Cregan was called back to Winterfell, his duty in the south completed. Sometime after his return to the north, a few northern trade ships, venturing southward, were indeed attacked by pirates operating from the Three Sisters. It was a familiar pattern, one that Cregan had anticipated. This time, however, the response was swift and definitive. The Asgardian army moved. It was a short, brutal campaign. The pirate dens were utterly eradicated. The local lords, weakened by centuries of neglect and internal feuding, were quickly subjugated. The Arryns protested, as predicted, but the Iron Throne upheld its prior agreement. The Three Sisters, a strategic gateway between the north and the south, now belonged to Asgard. Cregan Stark, having orchestrated this conquest, did not return to Winterfell. Instead, he established a new house for himself and his descendants, House Frostfire. Its sigil, a dire wolf wreathed in blue flames, symbolized the unique blend of his northern heritage and his family's new bond with dragons. He was established as the Lord of the Three Sisters, and immediately set about building a formidable eastern military navy port of Asgard there. This new stronghold, named Frostfang, became a permanent projection of northern and Asgardian power into the southern seas, ensuring the safety of their trade routes and serving as a crucial naval base. His marriage to Visenya had been fruitful. They had 3 children, 1 boy and 2 girls. Each of them, touched by the unique blend of Stark and Targaryen blood, had either successfully hatched a dragon from an egg or bonded with one of the existing dragons from Dragonstone. With these new, formidable dragon riders, Asgard now commanded the loyalty of 3 fire dragons, in addition to the ancient ice dragons of the far north. The union of fire and ice was not just a symbol, it was a potent reality. The future of Westeros, shaped by the foresight and strength of Queen Rhaenyra and the unrelenting will of Cregan Frostfire, looked irrevocably changed. 4 comments 0 vote. Time passes too. The Dragon Council, established just 15 years into Queen Rhaenyra's reign, had proven to be a resounding success, a testament to Cregan Stark's foresight. It was a revolutionary concept for Westeros, a deliberate tempering of absolute monarchical power. It comprised all adult Targaryens of age, a gathering of dragonlords and their kin, each with a voice in the destiny of their house and the realm. The council met regularly, its chambers often filled with passionate debate, with differing opinions and strong personalities clashing. There were, inevitably, power struggles. Young, ambitious princes and princesses, seasoned veterans of the council, all vied for influence, for their voices to be heard, for their visions to prevail. Arguments could become heated, voices raised, and tempers flared. The very air in the council chambers would sometimes thrum with the latent power of dragons, a silent reminder of the might contained within the room. However, crucially, these struggles never took the form of full-blown war. The framework of the council, its established rules, and the collective memory of the Dance of the Dragons, served as a powerful deterrent. Succession, once a bloody lottery, was now a matter of reasoned debate and collective decision. When a king or queen died, the council would convene, meticulously assessing each eligible Targaryen. They weighed their strengths, their weaknesses, their wisdom, and their temperament. The most suitable candidate, not necessarily the eldest, was chosen to wear the crown. This system, though it sometimes led to prolonged discussions, ensured that only the most capable ascended the Iron Throne, preventing the reign of a weak or foolish monarch. Furthermore, the council's power to remove an unfit ruler was a sort of Valyrian steel hanging over every monarch's head. It ensured accountability, forcing kings and queens to consider the welfare of the realm above their personal whims. Major decisions, from declaring war to forging new alliances, from enacting sweeping laws to initiating grand public works, all required the council's approval. This collective wisdom, though it sometimes slowed the pace of governance, prevented rash or disastrous choices. The council was a living, breathing testament to the lessons learned from the dance. It was a testament to the belief that even the most powerful family in Westeros needed checks and balances, that even dragons could benefit from tempered power. In 216 AC, a pivotal moment in Westerosi history unfolded, a testament to the enduring peace and diplomatic prowess of the Targaryens under Rhaenyra's legacy. King Aeron, Rhaenyra's grandson, sat on the Iron Throne, a monarch shaped by the new era of Dragonhold and the Dragon Council. Aeron was a king of quiet wisdom, less prone to the fiery passions of his ancestors, more inclined towards diplomacy and strategic alliances. He understood that true strength lay not just in conquest, but in unity. His gaze turned south, towards the ancient, proud, and fiercely independent principality of Dorne. For centuries, Dorne had resisted integration into the Seven Kingdoms, maintaining its unique laws, customs, and titles. Previous attempts to bring Dorne into the fold had always ended in bloodshed, in failed invasions and bitter resentment. But Aeron sought a different path. He initiated a series of delicate, protracted negotiations with the Martells, the ruling house of Dorne. Messengers traveled back and forth, bearing proposals and counter-proposals, each word weighed with immense care. The Dornish, proud and wary, were initially skeptical. They valued their independence above all else. But Aeron's patience, his respect for their customs, and the undeniable stability of the Targaryen reign began to sway them. The negotiations culminated in a grand agreement, a diplomatic triumph that would bind Dorne to the Iron Throne not by conquest, but by blood and mutual respect. The core of the agreement was a marriage. A Dornish prince, the heir to Sunspear, was to be married to a Targaryen princess, a direct descendant of Queen Rhaenyra. The marriage was celebrated with immense pomp and ceremony, a grand affair that blended Dornish and Targaryen traditions. The wedding feast was held in Sunspear, a vibrant spectacle of Dornish music, food, and culture. The terms of the agreement were that Dorne was allowed to remain a principality, unique among the kingdoms of Westeros. Its rulers would retain their titles of prince and princess, rather than being reduced to lords. They would govern their lands according to Dornish law, with minimal interference from the Iron Throne, as long as they remained loyal and paid their due taxes. This integration of Dorne into the realm was a monumental achievement. It brought an end to centuries of simmering animosity, creating a truly unified Westeros. The peace that followed was profound. Trade flourished between Dorne and the other kingdoms. Cultural exchanges enriched both sides. The southern borders of the realm, once a source of constant tension, were now secure. Dorne, with its unique identity preserved, became a loyal and valuable part of the Seven Kingdoms, a testament to Aeron's diplomatic skill and the evolving nature of Targaryen rule. In 220 AC, another ambitious project was initiated, a testament to the enduring alliance between Asgard and the Iron Throne, and a further step in unifying the realm. The success of the initial railway line from Moat Cailin to Storm's End had been undeniable. It had proven its worth in trade, in rapid troop movement, and in fostering communication. Now, the time had come for a grander vision. An agreement was forged between the Crown and Asgard for a massive expansion of the railway line. This new endeavor would connect King's Landing to every Lord Paramount's stronghold across the realm. From the Red Keep, lines would now stretch to Highgarden in the Reach, to Castle Rock in the Westerlands, to the Eyrie in the Vale, to Riverrun in the Riverlands, and to Sunspear in the Dorne. The terms of the agreement remained the same. Asgard, with its unparalleled engineering expertise and advanced technology, would undertake the construction, maintenance, and operation of the entire network. In return, Asgard would receive a commanding 70% of the profits, a testament to their indispensable role in the sheer scale of their investment. The Iron Throne would receive the remaining 30%, a steady stream of wealth that bolstered the royal treasury. The construction was a colossal undertaking, spanning 15 years. Thousands of laborers, both northern and southern, toiled tirelessly. Mountains were tunneled through, vast rivers were bridged, and dense forests were cleared. It was a monumental feat of engineering, transforming the landscape of Westeros. The clang of hammers, the roar of steam engines, a new, wondrous sound to many common folk, and the shouts of foremen became a familiar symphony across the continent. The project provided immense employment, stimulating local economies and bringing prosperity to countless villages along the new routes. It was a tangible benefit that the common people could directly attribute to the Crown's foresight and Asgard's ingenuity. By 235 AC, the grand vision was complete. The entire network of railways crisscrossed Westeros, iron arteries binding the disparate regions into a cohesive whole. Celebrations erupted across the realm. Grand feasts were held in every major city connected by the new lines. The speed of travel and communication was revolutionary. Merchants could now transport goods across vast distances in a fraction of the time, leading to an unprecedented economic boom. News traveled faster, binding the realm's distant corners closer than ever before. The railway network solidified Asgard's economic power, making it an indispensable partner to the Iron Throne. It also cemented the Crown's control over the realm, allowing for rapid deployment of troops and swift communication with its vassals. The railway was a symbol of the new era, a testament to the progress and unity that defined Rhaenyra's golden reign. In 240 AC, the Iron Throne, now secure and prosperous, turned its attention to a long-standing nuisance that had plagued the shipping lanes of the narrow sea for centuries, the stepstones. These treacherous islands, a labyrinth of rocky outcrops and hidden coves, had always been a haven for pirates, slavers, and renegade lords. They disrupted trade, preyed on merchant vessels, and defied the authority of any kingdom. Previous attempts to control them had been fleeting, often ending in costly failures. But the unified Westeros under the Targaryens, now bolstered by a strong navy and the formidable presence of dragons, was no longer content to tolerate such lawlessness. The decision to conquer the Stepstones was made by the Dragon Council, a strategic imperative to secure vital trade routes and project the crown's power across the seas. The campaign was launched with overwhelming force. The royal fleet, now larger and more organized than ever, sailed south, carrying thousands of seasoned troops. The Targaryen dragons, including the descendants of Syrax, Vermax, and even the now loyal Tessarion, soared above the fleet, their presence a terrifying harbinger of the crown's wrath. The conquest was no easy feat. The pirates and renegades of the Stepstones were fierce, desperate fighters, intimately familiar with the treacherous currents and hidden passages of their island strongholds. Naval battles were fierce and bloody, as the royal fleet systematically cleared out pirate vessels and blockaded their havens. Ground assaults on the rocky islands were brutal, as the royal army rooted out entrenched defenders from caves and fortified coves. The dragons played a crucial role, their fire clearing paths, destroying hidden strongholds, and breaking the will of the defenders. They were instruments of overwhelming force, turning the tide in many a desperate skirmish. The campaign lasted for 5 arduous years, a testament to the stubborn resistance of the Stepstones' inhabitants and the challenging terrain. But the Iron Throne was relentless. By 245 AC, the conquest was complete. Every pirate lair had been purged, and brought to justice. The Stepstones, once a symbol of lawlessness, were now firmly under Targaryen control. In a grand decree issued from King's Landing, the Stepstones were declared the 7th Kingdom of Westeros, a new addition to the unified realm. And, in a powerful statement of direct control, House Targaryen itself was declared its lord paramount. The islands would be governed directly by the crown, their strategic importance too great to entrust to any single noble house. The conquest of the Stepstones secured the shipping lanes, ensuring the free flow of trade and bolstering the realm's prosperity. It was a final, decisive act of expansion, solidifying the Targaryens' dominion over all of Westeros and its surrounding seas. The realm, under the enduring legacy of Queen Rhaenyra and the institutions she helped establish, had truly entered a new era of peace, prosperity, and unparalleled power. The future, once uncertain, now stretched out, bright and unified, under the watchful eyes of dragons and the steady hand of the crown. 11 comments 0 vote. Time passes 3. The period from 130 AC to 150 AC marked the nascent stirrings of Asgard's true technological awakening. It was a time of intense theoretical exploration and fundamental scientific breakthroughs, largely confined to the hallowed halls of their academies. Asgardian scholars, unlike the tradition-bound maesters of Westeros, were encouraged to challenge existing paradigms, to dissect natural phenomena with rigorous observation and experimentation. They delved deep into the properties of gases, studying the lifting power of heated air, the expansion of steam, the composition of various elements. They meticulously charted air currents and atmospheric pressures. Early experiments involved rudimentary mechanical devices, crude clockwork mechanisms, and simple pumps for mining operations. These were slow, often inefficient, but they represented the first steps away from purely manual labor. Metallurgy, already an Asgardian strength, saw advancements. They learned to forge stronger, lighter alloys, capable of withstanding greater stresses and temperatures, crucial for future innovations. The very air of Asgard, particularly within its intellectual centers, buzzed with a spirit of inquiry. Solutions to practical problems, from lighting their deep mines to transporting heavy loads, were sought with relentless determination. They theorized about flight, not just mimicking birds, but harnessing the fundamental laws of physics to ascend. The concept of lighter than air travel began to take root, whispered among visionary engineers. The true dawn of Asgard's aerial age arrived between 150 AC and 180 AC, with the relentless pursuit of the blimp. The initial designs were crude, often sketched on parchment, daring and fantastical. The challenge was immense. How to create a vessel light enough to float, yet strong enough to carry passengers and cargo. What material could contain vast volumes of lifting gas? How would such a contraption be controlled? Their initial experiments were often met with failure. Early prototypes sagged, ripped, or were blown off course by unseen winds. Many hours were spent on the ground, in the biting cold, analyzing mistakes. But the Asgardians were nothing if not persistent. They experimented with different materials for the envelopes, from treated animal bladders to tightly woven, waxed fabrics, seeking the perfect balance of lightness and durability. They developed methods to produce and contain vast quantities of lighter-than-air gases, initially heated air, then gradually moving towards more efficient, less flammable options discovered through tireless chemical research. The first successful flights were small-scale, unmanned models, mere toys at first, floated clumsily above the tree lines, guided by ropes. Then, larger, tethered contraptions lifted brave test pilots just a few feet off the ground. The first truly successful, manned, untethered flight was a moment of profound triumph, a hushed reverence washing over the onlookers. A small, cigar-shaped vessel, powered by rudimentary propellers, ascended steadily into the crisp Asgardian sky. Early blimps were primarily used for exploration. They soared over impassable mountain ranges, revealing hidden valleys and uncharted territories. They mapped vast swaths of Asgard, a perspective never before possible. Long-range scouting missions became feasible, extending their reach far beyond their known borders. They began to carry light but valuable cargo over difficult terrains, bypassing arduous ground journeys. The impact on Asgardian society was profound. A sense of wonder permeated their disciplined lives. Children gazed skyward, dreaming of flight. New trade routes began to open, connecting remote settlements. The world, once perceived as a flat expanse broken by mountains, now seemed to open up, offering endless possibilities above. The blimp was not just a machine, it was a symbol of Asgard's audacious spirit. The period from 180 AC to 220 AC saw the full emergence of Asgard's early industrial revolution. The blimps had been a feat of physics and materials, but the true revolution began with the harnessing of power. Engineers focused on steam power, driven by the need for more efficient methods of resource extraction. Primitive steam engines, fueled by abundant coal from their deep mines, were developed to pump water out of flooded shafts. These early machines were clunky, noisy, and consumed vast amounts of fuel, but they worked. They revolutionized mining, allowing deeper, richer veins to be exploited, fueling further industrial growth. The principles of steam were soon applied to other areas. Mechanized textile production emerged, with early factories featuring clattering looms driven by centralized steam engines. Fabric production soared, far outstripping manual methods. This led to a significant shift in labor. While manual labor remained vital, a new class of machine-assisted workers began to emerge, tending to the hungry machines. Improved metallurgy, a cornerstone of Asgardian strength, allowed for the production of stronger, more precise machine parts. This, in turn, led to more efficient engines and more durable machinery. The burgeoning industrial capacity naturally led to thoughts of more efficient land transport. Asgard's deep mines produced the iron and coal needed for this massive undertaking. Their skilled engineers designed the tracks, the rolling stock, and the powerful steam locomotives. This burgeoning industrial capacity directly enabled their contribution to Westeros's development. When Queen Rhaenyra sought to connect her realm with railways, it was Asgardian expertise and industrial output that made it possible. The vast quantities of steel rails, the powerful locomotives, the tunneling equipment, all were products of Asgard's burgeoning industrial might. It was a marvel that Westeros could only dream of producing themselves. The railway construction within Asgard itself was a parallel project, binding their own scattered settlements, connecting mines to manufacturing centers, and ports to inland cities. The rumble of trains became a new sound in the Asgardian landscape. The final period, from 220 AC to 262 AC, was one of integration, refinement, and expansion, solidifying Asgard's position as the technological powerhouse of the world. Blimp technology saw continuous refinement. Larger, more aerodynamic designs emerged, capable of carrying heavier payloads over vast distances and for longer durations. Navigation became more precise, with improved instruments and better understanding of atmospheric conditions. While primarily for trade and exploration, the potential for military applications was quietly explored, their silent passage above enemy lines a terrifying prospect. Advanced industrial techniques became standard. Mass production methods were perfected, leading to cheaper goods and increased output. The concept of interchangeable parts made repairs and manufacturing far more efficient. The Asgardian railway network expanded further, becoming an intricate web that crisscrossed the entire continent, connecting every major city and resource hub. This internal network was just as impressive as their contribution to Westeros. The economic impact was profound. Wealth flowed into Asgard from trade, from their technological exports, and from their share of the Westerosi railway profits. The standard of living for many Asgardians steadily improved. Their cities grew, modern and efficient. Their ports, once merely functional, became bustling hubs of global trade. Asgard's naval strength, already considerable, was further bolstered by their industrial might. Fort Frostfang, established on the Three Sisters, was a testament to their ability to project power across the seas. The conquest of the Three Sisters, while framed as an anti-piracy measure, was facilitated by their industrially built fleet, their powerful warships, and their advanced armaments. The House Frostfire, established by Cregan Stark, became a pivotal link in this continued development, embodying the blend of Stark grit and Targaryen resilience, with their own fire dragons adding to Asgard's might. Cregan, as Lord of Fort Frostfang, oversaw the development of this strategic naval base, a hub where Asgardian ingenuity met Westerosi needs. The very perception of Asgard by Westeros shifted. It was no longer just a distant, mysterious land of hardy warriors. It was a realm of awe-inspiring innovation, of advanced machinery, and of an almost alien understanding of the world. While Westeros enjoyed its newfound stability and golden age under the Targaryens, it was keenly aware that much of that prosperity was quietly underpinned by the relentless progress and technological superiority of Asgard. The age of steam and steel, of flight and mechanized production, had dawned first in Asgard, transforming a stoic, insular kingdom into a global powerhouse, its silent advancements shaping the destiny of two continents. The year is 130 AC. Far across the treacherous Sunset Sea, veiled by mist and whispered legends, lay the lands of Asgard. It was a realm of rugged beauty, of ancient forests and towering, snow-capped peaks. Its people, the Skoll, were known for their stoicism, their fierce independence, and their deep connection to the unforgiving land. Life in Asgard was hard-won, dictated by the relentless rhythms of nature. Their cities, carved often from the living rock, were marvels of subterranean engineering, warm havens against the biting winds. Their knowledge of metalwork was unparalleled, their steel famed for its strength and keenness. They were a people of quiet ingenuity, accustomed to solving problems with practicality and persistent effort. While Westeros was steeped in feudal traditions and agrarian life, Asgard already possessed a foundational understanding of mechanics and resource extraction, born of necessity. Their ships, though sturdy, were primarily for coastal trade and exploration of the nearer islands. Their world was vast, but their understanding of its breadth was limited by the technology of the age. Yet, within the minds of its scholars and engineers, a spark of revolutionary thought was beginning to ignite. A curiosity that would, over the next 132 years, transform their realm beyond recognition. Crucially, however, this spirit of innovation was not entirely unfettered. A deliberate policy, dating back to the time of Theon Stark, the Great Wolf, had shaped the very trajectory of Asgard's technological path. The period from 130 AC to 150 AC marked the nascent stirrings of Asgard's true technological awakening. It was a time of intense theoretical exploration and fundamental scientific breakthroughs, largely confined to the hallowed halls of their academies. Asgardian scholars, unlike the tradition-bound maesters of Westeros, were encouraged to challenge existing paradigms, to dissect natural phenomena with rigorous observation and experimentation. They delved deep into the properties of gases, studying the lifting power of heated air, the expansion of steam, the composition of various elements. They meticulously charted air currents and atmospheric pressures. Early experiments involved rudimentary mechanical devices, crude clockwork mechanisms, and simple pumps for mining operations. These were slow, often inefficient, but they represented the first steps away from purely manual labor. Metallurgy, already an Asgardian strength, saw advancements. They learned to forge stronger, lighter alloys, capable of withstanding greater stresses and temperatures, crucial for future innovations. The very air of Asgard, particularly within its intellectual centers, buzzed with a spirit of inquiry. Solutions to practical problems, from lighting their deep mines to transporting heavy loads, were sought with relentless determination. However, one particular avenue of innovation had been deliberately curtailed. Centuries prior, during the reign of Theon Stark, the Great Wolf, Asgard had successfully developed black powder and early cannons. These formidable weapons had revolutionized warfare, giving Asgard a devastating advantage. But Theon Stark, a king of foresight, had recognized the destructive potential of such widespread, easily replicable power. He understood that while cannons were effective, the proliferation of smaller, handheld firearms could lead to an era of endless, chaotic warfare, undermining the very order he sought to build. Thus, Theon Stark made a decree, a law that would stand for generations. No new research was to be carried on black powder. Its production was tightly controlled, limited to military use for existing cannons and a few specialized explosive devices. Furthermore, the development of firearms beyond the initial cannon designs was strictly forbidden. The decree was absolute, enforced with the full might of the Stark kings. This meant that while Westeros was still fighting with swords and bows, Asgard possessed cannons, but their technological development in this specific area had been deliberately frozen. Their future innovations would be channeled elsewhere. 8 comments 0 vote. Time passes 4. The year is 262 AC. Westeros, under the steady hand of the Targaryens and the enduring influence of Asgard, breathed in an era of unprecedented prosperity and peace. A new golden age, born from the ashes of the Dance of the Dragons and nurtured by Queen Rhaenyra's visionary reign, now flourished. The realm was interconnected by iron rails, its capital a shining beacon of progress, its ancient institutions reshaped. Yet, even amidst this established order, the currents of fate stirred. In the harsh, prospering lands of the north, a new chapter was about to unfold, one that would once again redefine the very limits of innovation, driven by an extraordinary circumstance. In the depths of Winterfell, within its ancient, echoing walls, the first son of Lord Rickard Stark and Lady Lara Stark, née Skoll, was born. They named him Brandon. To the casual observer, he was simply another heir, a robust northern babe, strong of limb and keen of eye. But within that newborn frame stirred an ancient spirit, a consciousness returned from the annals of time. It was the soul of Theon Stark, the great wolf, the king who bent the Targaryens and their dragon's knee. Brandon grew quickly, a child of unusual intensity. From his earliest days, his intellect shone with a brilliance that startled his tutors. He absorbed knowledge like a sponge, devouring ancient texts, mastering engineering principles, and questioning everything with an unsettling depth. His insights were startlingly pragmatic, often leaping ahead of conventional wisdom. He spent hours in the northern forges, not just observing, but experimenting, pushing the boundaries of metallurgy and mechanics. His mind was a forge itself, constantly sparking with ideas, connecting disparate concepts with uncanny ease. He possessed an innate understanding of how to build, how to make things move, how to transmit power. It was as if he held the collective knowledge of Asgard's past, and then some. This unique blend of northern grit and Asgardian intellectual heritage, coupled with the strange spark of his past life, set him apart. He saw the raw power of steam engines and the intricate networks of the railway, marveling at the foundations laid by his predecessors. But his vision stretched further, beyond fixed tracks, beyond static factories. He envisioned a world where power moved freely, where communication transcended physical barriers, where the very fabric of daily life was transformed by machine and ingenuity. Brandon Stark's first truly groundbreaking innovation targeted personal mobility. Inspired by the efficiency of steam locomotives on rails, he pondered how to free that power from its rigid iron lines. He began experimenting with steam-powered road vehicles. The initial prototypes were crude, cumbersome, and noisy. They coughed and wheezed, often breaking down, resembling lumbering beasts of metal and smoke. Brandon dedicated years to the challenge. He revolutionized wheel design, incorporating resilient new alloys and clever suspension systems to absorb the shocks of uneven terrain. He refined boiler efficiency, making the engine smaller, lighter, and more powerful. He focused on steering mechanisms, allowing these, horseless carriages, to navigate twists and turns with increasing precision. The sound of his early steam cars chugging through Winterfell, a startling cacophony of hisses, clanks, and whistles, became a familiar, if initially bewildering, part of northern life. Farmers stared open-mouthed as these strange contraptions rolled past, their produce wagons slowly gaining speed, leaving horses bewildered. By the late 280s AC, Brandon had developed models capable of reliably transporting goods and even small groups of people across northern roads at speeds far exceeding any horse-drawn cart. They were still expensive, a luxury for the wealthy and powerful, but their potential was undeniable. Trade goods moved faster from remote keeps to coastal ports. Messengers delivered dispatches with unprecedented swiftness. The North, already benefiting from the railway, now had its internal movements revolutionized. The iron horses, as some called them, began to spread, slowly at first, then gaining traction. Perhaps Brandon Stark's most revolutionary invention, however, was the telegram. He had observed the limitations of ravens, the speed of railway travel, and sought something even faster for communication. His deep understanding of electrical phenomena, a field largely unexplored in Westeros, led him to conceive of transmitting messages through coded electrical impulses. He experimented with conductors, with Leyden jars for storing electrical charge, and with simple switches to create and break circuits. The challenge lay in transmitting a discernible signal over vast distances. He worked tirelessly on creating a reliable code, a series of short and long pulses that could represent letters and numbers. This became the basis of the Stark code, a complex but efficient language of clicks and buzzes. The construction of the first telegram line was a monumental undertaking, stretching from Winterfell to Moat Cailin. It required setting up poles, stringing insulated wires, and building relay stations to boost the weakening signal. His early telegraphers were highly trained individuals, adept at sending and receiving messages by manipulating keys and interpreting the clicks of the receiver. The first successful message sent from Winterfell to Moat Cailin, delivered within minutes, was met with disbelief and then awe. It was a miracle of communication, a whisper traveling at the speed of lightning. News of a border skirmish, a sudden storm, or a vital trade deal could now be relayed across hundreds of miles in moments, not days or weeks. This shattered the traditional barriers of distance. The North rapidly adopted the telegram. Lines branched out from Winterfell to all major northern castles. The impact on governance, trade, and even warfare was incalculable. Lords could react instantly to distant events. Merchants could negotiate deals across kingdoms. It heralded a new age of interconnectedness for Westeros. Brandon Stark's genius was not limited to transport and communication. His mind spun with countless other ideas that further propelled Asgard and the North into a new technological epoch. He spearheaded the development of advanced agricultural machinery. Steam-powered plows ripped through stubborn soil with unprecedented speed, while early mechanical harvesters dramatically increased crop yields. This ensured abundant food supplies, reducing famine and supporting a growing population. The overall impact of Brandon Stark's innovations on Asgard was immense. It ushered in a second, even more rapid, phase of industrialization and development. The North, always a bastion of pragmatic innovation, found its stride under his guidance. Its cities expanded, its industries boomed, and its people enjoyed a quality of life unimaginable a century prior. Asgard's wealth and influence grew exponentially. Its engineers and machines were now in demand across the known world, their prowess unmatched. The present year is 290 AC. 28 years have passed since the rebirth of Theon Stark as Brandon. The innovations he championed have become ubiquitous, transforming the daily lives of millions. Steam-powered road vehicles are no longer a novelty but a common sight on improved, inter-regional highways. The telegraph network spans the entire continent of Westeros, connecting every major city and military outpost to King's Landing and, through undersea cables, to Asgard itself. The realm is more interconnected, more efficient, and more prosperous than ever before. The Golden Age initiated by Rhaenyra has deepened, propelled by the relentless march of Asgardian progress. However, a somber note has settled upon the furthest reaches of the North. In 285 AC, a significant policy decision was made by the Starks. Brandon Stark advised his father that a threat beyond the wall is approaching, and he has seen it in a green dream. Heeding his son's advice, Rickard Stark ordered the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch to seal all the gates going to the north. The wall and its gates were completely sealed. No ranger has been sent for scouting outside the wall since that year. The Night's Watch, their numbers strong over generations and haven't dwindled like in the original timeline. The whispers of ancient dangers had been drowned out by the roar of industry and the hum of progress. The North, secure behind its technological might and the ancient, silent sentinel of the wall, looked inward, focused on its own remarkable ascent. The distant wildlands, once a source of fear, were now simply forgotten, a blank space on the map. The world had changed. The old threats seemed to fade in the face of new wonders. Yet, for some, the deep, abiding silence from beyond the wall held a different kind of mystery, a stillness that was perhaps too utter, too absolute, for true peace. 5 comments 0 vote. Time passes 5. The year is 290 AC. Westeros, the unified continent, stands as a testament to a century and a half of unprecedented peace, prosperity, and innovation. The scars of the Dance of the Dragons have long faded, replaced by the gleaming infrastructure of a modernizing realm. At the heart of this golden age sits King Maekar Targaryen, the current monarch of the Seven Kingdoms, ruling from the Iron Throne. He is a king of stern demeanor, known for his administrative prowess and his unwavering commitment to the stability and progress forged by his ancestors. His reign is a continuation of the legacy established over the past century and a half of Targaryen rule, a period marked by changes that have reshaped the very fabric of Westerosi society. The foundations of this golden age were laid over a century and a half of Targaryen rule, a period of visionary leadership and strategic alliances that fundamentally altered the realm. The College of Dragonhold in Harrenhal, established early in this transformative period, had flourished. It was now the undisputed center of learning in the South, shaping generations of lords and ladies with a curriculum focused on governance, science, and practical skills, free from the old biases. The Citadel was a distant memory, its influence entirely eradicated. Maesters, as a powerful, independent order, ceased to exist. Their knowledge was now disseminated through Dragonhold, under the Crown's direct control, ensuring loyalty and preventing the subtle machinations of the past. The faith, too, had been irrevocably curbed. Its temporal power had dwindled to less than 10% of its former might. While still a spiritual force, it no longer challenged the Crown's authority, nor did it amass vast wealth from coin donations, its influence confined to matters of piety. The Dragon Council, a revolutionary institution, had proven its worth time and again. It ensured a stable succession, preventing the bloody disputes of old. Its power to elect and, if necessary, remove a monarch, tempered royal authority, fostering a more collaborative and accountable form of governance. This unique body had become the bedrock of Targaryen stability. The Dragon Council, established just 15 years into this transformative period, had proven to be a resounding success, a testament to Theon Stark's foresight. It was a revolutionary concept for Westeros, a deliberate tempering of absolute monarchical power. It comprised all adult Targaryens of age, a gathering of dragonlords and their kin, each with a voice in the destiny of their house and the realm. The council met regularly, its chambers often filled with passionate debate, with differing opinions and strong personalities clashing. There were, inevitably, power struggles. Young, ambitious princes and princesses, seasoned veterans of the council, all vied for influence, for their voices to be heard, for their visions to prevail. Arguments could become heated, voices raised, and tempers flared. The very air in the council chambers would sometimes thrum with the latent power of dragons, a silent reminder of the might contained within the room. Over the decades, there may have been some foolish Targaryen princes or princesses who were too proud, or craven, or overly religious in their zeal, whose personal flaws or extreme views threatened the stability of the realm. Their arrogance might have led them to defy the council, their cowardice to shirk duty, or their piety to attempt to impose the faith's will upon the crown. When such individuals were deemed a threat to the realm, the Dragon Council did not hesitate. They were swiftly kicked out of the council, stripped of their power and influence, and their voices silenced. Their dragons, if they possessed them, were often taken into the crown's direct care. These instances, though rare, were made public. The disgraced Targaryens were shown as a stark example for future generations, a chilling reminder that even the blood of the dragon was not immune to the collective judgment of the council. This mechanism ensured that the Targaryen dynasty remained strong, adaptable, and free from the internal weaknesses that had once plagued it. Major decisions, from declaring war to forging new alliances, from enacting sweeping laws to initiating grand public works, all required the council's approval. This collective wisdom, though it sometimes slowed the pace of governance, prevented rash or disastrous choices. The council was a living, breathing testament to the lessons learned from the dance. It was a testament to the belief that even the most powerful family in Westeros needed checks and balances, that even dragons could benefit from tempered power. The railway network, a monumental joint venture with Asgard, now crisscrossed the entire continent. It connected King's Landing to every Lord Paramount's stronghold, revolutionizing trade, communication, and troop deployment, binding the realm closer than ever before. This vast iron web was a constant hum of progress. The subsequent decades, leading up to the current year of 290 AC, saw the continued flourishing of the Targaryen dynasty in the realm. The Dragon Council continued to function efficiently, ensuring stable successions and tempering any monarchical excesses, proving its worth as a cornerstone of stability. The Targaryens, now a vast and powerful family, had grown in number and in their connection to their ancient heritage. In 290 AC, House Targaryen boasts 10 adult dragon riders. These are not merely symbolic figures. They are active participants in the realm's defense and governance, their dragons a visible, awe-inspiring symbol of the crown's might. Beyond the ridden dragons, Dragonstone, the ancestral seat of House Targaryen, is a vibrant testament to their power. The island now hosts 20 wild dragons of different sizes, a thriving population that roams its volcanic peaks and coastal cliffs. These wild dragons, though not bonded, represent a vast reserve of potential power, a living, breathing symbol of the Targaryen legacy. The realm's prosperity, fueled by the railway network and secure trade routes, allowed for continued investment in public works. Cities across Westeros were cleaner, healthier, and more organized, their populations thriving under the crown's benevolent hand. Education at Dragonhold continued to produce a new generation of enlightened nobility, ensuring capable leaders for the future. Beyond the railways, the very infrastructure of Westeros had undergone a quiet revolution, largely influenced by Asgardian engineering and the innovations brought by Theon Stark. The muddy, rutted tracks that once served as roads were now being systematically replaced. Across the kingdoms, vast stretches of concrete roads now crisscrossed the landscape. These gray ribbons, smooth and durable, allowed for unprecedented speed and efficiency in travel. They were built to last, resistant to the wear and tear that had plagued older routes, ensuring seamless transport across the realm. The impact was immediate and immense. Goods could be transported faster and with less damage, boosting trade and local economies. Merchants, once wary of treacherous journeys, found their burdens lightened, their profits increased, as goods flowed freely. Beyond the roads, infrastructural development had touched every aspect of urban life. Cities boasted comprehensive drainage systems that carried away waste, drastically reducing disease and improving public health. Aqueducts, some drawing on ancient designs but built with modern materials and engineering, supplied clean, fresh water to urban centers, a luxury once unknown to many. Public buildings, from grand administrative centers to new, well-maintained markets, were constructed with an eye towards efficiency and public service. Street lighting, utilizing advanced gas lamps, transformed the cities after dusk, making them safer and more vibrant, extending the hours of commerce and social life. These developments, often implemented by engineers trained at Dragonhold, were a constant, visible reminder to the common folk of the crown's commitment to their well-being. The improvements were tangible, directly impacting their daily lives, cementing their loyalty to the Targaryen reign. The world had changed. Yet, for some, the deep, abiding silence, a stillness that was perhaps too utter, too absolute, for true peace. The Seven Kingdoms, basking in their golden age, remained blissfully unaware of what might stir in the forgotten lands beyond the frozen barrier. 14 comments 0 vote. Calm before the storm 1. 291 AC. Winterfell. Third person POV. The crisp, biting air of a northern morning filled the training yard of Winterfell. The sounds of steel on steel, sharp and rhythmic, cut through the usual quiet hum of the castle. Snow, though melted in patches, still clung stubbornly to the shaded corners of the ancient stone walls. Sunlight, pale but persistent, slanted across the packed earth, illuminating the breath that plumed from the mouths of the two figures sparring. They moved with a fluid grace, a testament to years of rigorous practice. It was Brandon Stark, the heir to Winterfell, and his younger brother, Benjen Stark. Brandon, robust and powerful, moved with a controlled ferocity. His sword, a blur of polished steel, seemed an extension of his will. Every parry, every thrust, was precise, economical. Benjen, leaner but equally quick, met his brother's attacks with a youthful vigor. He was agile, his movements swift, but lacked the sheer, unyielding power that Brandon possessed. They had been at it for a while, their movements honed by countless hours in this very yard. Their breathing was steady, disciplined, a testament to the rigorous training they had endured since childhood. A final, rapid exchange. Brandon's blade snapped forward, a feint, then a swift disarm. Benjen's training sword clattered to the ground, leaving him momentarily exposed. Brandon lowered his own blade, a faint smile touching his lips. It was a familiar outcome. Benjen exhaled, a visible puff of steam in the cold air. He nodded, acknowledging the defeat. Still too quick for me, brother, he conceded, a hint of good-natured frustration in his voice. Brandon offered him a hand, pulling him easily to his feet. You're getting faster, Benjen. Just need a bit more weight behind your swing. They walked towards a rough-hewn wooden bench set against the wall of the armory. A pail of fresh, cold water, drawn from Winterfell's deep well, sat beside it. They each grabbed a ladle, scooping the icy liquid and drinking deeply, the cool water a welcome relief after their exertions. The sounds of other guards and squires practicing in the distance filled the background. So, Benjen began, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. What are your plans for the new year, Brandon? More of those steam carriages. Brandon chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. Always more. The roads need to be ready for them. The telegram network is still expanding all around Asgard. Faster communication means faster trade, faster governance. Benjen nodded, looking out across the yard. His gaze stretched beyond the castle walls, towards the distant, snow-capped peaks. I've been thinking, Benjen said, his voice quiet, almost contemplative. Once the spring thaw truly sets in, and the new recruits are trained. He paused, taking another sip of water. I think I'll join the Night's Watch. Brandon's eyes, sharp and intelligent, met his brother's. There was no surprise in his gaze. He had sensed this coming. Benjen had always been drawn to the quiet solitude of the wild, to duty, to something beyond the confines of Winterfell. Are you certain, Benjen? Brandon asked, his voice calm. It's a hard life. A lonely one. And the wall is different now. I am certain, Benjen affirmed, his gaze firm. The wall may be sealed, and the wildlings gone, but the watch still holds ancient vows. Someone needs to remember them. To keep the vigil, even if it's a quiet one. Brandon nodded slowly. He understood. In a rapidly changing world, where ancient threats seemed to fade into myth, some still felt the call of older duties. Then I won't stop you. You'll make a fine watcher, Benjen. A true Stark of the Watch. He clapped his brother on the shoulder, a gesture of respect and acceptance. Just make sure you visit when you can. And send a telegram, not a raven. It's faster. Benjen grinned, a genuine, easy smile. I will. And you, brother, how are your own little wolves doing? Quote. Brandon's expression softened, a warmth entering his eyes. Hadrian is growing too fast. Already asking about engines and blueprints. He has a keen mind. He'll be off to Winterhold soon, won't he? Benjen asked. Aye, Brandon confirmed. In a few moons. He's eager. Wants to learn all they can teach him about the Asgard, about governance, about the world beyond the neck. Barthogen is all strength and stubbornness, Brandon continued, speaking of his second son. A true warrior in the making. Reminds me of father, sometimes. And young Cregan. Benjen chuckled, still quiet and watchful. More so than ever, Brandon said, a hint of pride in his voice. He sees things others miss. A sharp eye, a sharp mind. He'll be a force, that one. They finished their water, the easy camaraderie of brothers settling between them. The morning practice was done. Come, Brandon said, rising from the bench. It's time for the midday meal. Mother will be wondering where we are. They walked side by side, their boots crunching softly on the gravel path that led from the training yard towards the great hall. The sounds of the castle grew, a symphony of daily life. The scent of roasting meats, of fresh bread, and of simmering stews began to waft through the air, drawing them towards the warmth and bustle of the hall. The great hall of Winterfell was a place of ancient stone and roaring fires, a stark contrast to the gilded halls of the Red Keep. But it was no less grand in its own way, filled with the warmth of family and the echoes of centuries of Stark rule. Sunlight streamed through the high, arched windows, illuminating the banners of House Stark that hung from the rafters. The direwolf, proud and defiant, seemed to watch over the scene. Long, oaken tables, polished smooth by generations of use, were laden with platters of food. The midday meal was a hearty affair, typical of the North. Roasted venison, thick cuts of beef, steaming bowls of onion soup, and fresh-baked bread were piled high. Tankards of ale and pitchers of water stood ready. At the head of the main table sat King Rickard Stark, the current king of Asgard. His face, weathered by years of northern winds, held a look of quiet satisfaction. He was a strong, just lord, proud of his sons and the innovations they brought. Beside him sat Queen Lara Stark, née Skoll, Brandon's mother. Her features, sharper than those of most Westerosi women, hinted at her Asgardian heritage. Her eyes, a pale, striking blue, held a keen intelligence. To Brandon's right sat his wife, Princess Barbry Ricewell. Her fiery spirit and sharp wit were a perfect match for Brandon's intensity. She was a woman of strength and intelligence, deeply devoted to her family. Their three sons, Hadrian, Barthogen, and Cregan, sat nearby, their faces alight with youthful energy and the healthy appetites of growing boys. Hadrian, the eldest, already had a thoughtful, inquisitive look. Across from them sat Brandon's younger brother, Eddard Stark. Eddard was a man of quiet honor, his demeanor more reserved than Brandon's, but his loyalty was absolute. Beside Eddard sat his wife, Princess Ashara Dane. She was a striking woman, her dark hair and violet eyes a splash of Dornish beauty in the stark northern hall. Eddard had met and married her on one of his travels down south. Their own children, Arthur, Beren, and Marlon, three sturdy boys, sat with them, along with their young daughter, Diana, a bright-eyed girl with a quick smile. The hall was filled with the comfortable hum of family conversation, the clatter of plates, and the occasional burst of laughter. The warmth of the hearth fires chased away the lingering chill of the morning. As the meal progressed, King Rickard cleared his throat, drawing the family's attention. A faint smile played on his lips. I received a telegram this morning, King Rickard announced, his voice carrying clearly across the table. From Lyanna. A ripple of excitement went through the family. Lyanna, Rickard's daughter, was known for her adventurous spirit, and news from her was always eagerly awaited. She has given birth, Rickard continued, his smile widening. Another son, healthy and strong, she says. A chorus of congratulations went around the table. Lady Lara beamed, her eyes sparkling with joy. Barbry Ricewell offered her well wishes. And what did she name him, father? Eddard asked, a fond smile on his face. King Rickard's eyes twinkled. She named him Ragnar Lothbrok. A moment of surprised silence. Then, a few chuckles, and some raised eyebrows. The name was bold, ancient, echoing tales from across the narrow sea, from the sagas of the first men and the legendary figures of the north. Ragnar Lothbrok, Barbry Ricewell repeated, a playful smirk on her face. Our Lyanna truly knows how to pick a name. Sounds like he'll be a warrior, that one. She always did have a flair for the dramatic, Eddard commented, shaking his head with a fond smile. A true wild wolf, our Lyanna. Well, he'll have a strong name to live up to, Brandon said, a thoughtful look on his face. Ragnar Lothbrok. It speaks of strength, of defiance. A fitting name for a child of the north. They talked for a while longer about Lyanna and her new son, speculating about his temperament, his future. The conversation then shifted, as it often did, to the wider realm, to the news from the south. Speaking of the south, Queen Lara said, her gaze turning to Brandon. I received word from King Maekar's court. The tourney at Dragonhold is set to be quite the event. King Rickard nodded, his expression becoming more serious. 3 moons from now. It's expected to be the biggest tourney Westeros has seen in decades. Every Lord of South and Asgard will be attending. And many more besides. It's meant to be a grand show of peace, isn't it? Eddard mused. A demonstration of the two kingdoms' unity. Precisely, Brandon confirmed. It will be a spectacle. A testament to the Golden Age. A chance for all the kingdoms to see the progress, the stability, the interconnectedness. And to show that peace still prevails between the two kingdoms, Princess Barbary added, her gaze falling on Brandon, a subtle acknowledgement of the Stark-Targaryen alliance that underpinned much of this peace. It will be a fine opportunity to see how the South has truly changed, Benjen said, a hint of curiosity in his voice. And to see how the Dragonhold students fare against Winterhold. The conversation continued, flowing easily between family matters and the affairs of the realm. The great hall, filled with the warmth of the fire, the aroma of the meal, and the comfortable presence of family, was a haven of peace and prosperity. The Starks, grounded in their ancient traditions yet embracing the future, were a testament to the new era. And the tourney at Dragonhold, a grand celebration of this peace, awaited them. A.N. Theon Stark is reincarnated as Brandon Stark. 3 comments 0 vote. Calm before the storm 2. 291 AC. King's Landing. Third person POV. The sun, a warm, benevolent orb, shone down upon King's Landing, its rays glinting off the red stone of the Red Keep. The city, once a labyrinth of squalor and chaos, now hummed with the orderly bustle of prosperity, its concrete roads clean, its gas lamps ready for the coming dusk. The training yard of the Red Keep was a vibrant scene of activity, far removed from the grim purpose it had served a century and a half ago. Here, the clang of steel on steel was not the sound of war, but of disciplined practice, a testament to the realm's enduring peace. King Maekar Targaryen stood observing, a stern figure in a practical leather doublet, his silver hair neatly braided. His eyes, sharp and assessing, missed nothing. He was a king of action, who believed in leading by example, even in the mundane. His sons, Prince Rhaegar and Prince Baelor, sparred fiercely in the center of the yard. Rhaegar, the crown prince, if he doesn't do anything stupid, moved with a fluid grace, his longs were a dance of precision and finesse. He was a scholar as much as a warrior, his movements reflecting a thoughtful, almost poetic approach to combat. Baelor, his younger brother, was a stark contrast. He wielded a heavier greatsword, his movements powerful and direct, relying on brute strength and relentless pressure. He was a formidable presence, a bull in the lists, his blows capable of shattering shields. Their Kingsguard, clad in gleaming white, stood watchful. Not just 7, but a contingent of 50 sworn shields now protected the royal family and the Red Keep. A dozen of them stood around the training yard, their presence a silent testament to the security of the realm. A few younger squires, sons of loyal lords, practiced their drills nearby, their eyes occasionally darting towards the royal princes, eager to emulate their skill. After a particularly vigorous exchange, where Rhaegar deftly disarmed Baelor with a swift twist, the two brothers lowered their blades, breathing heavily but with smiles on their faces. Still too quick, brother, Baelor grunted, clapping Rhaegar on the shoulder. One day, I'll catch you. Rhaegar chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. Perhaps when you learn to think beyond brute force, Baelor. A sword is an extension of the mind, not just the arm. King Maekar approached them, his gaze approving. Well fought, my sons. Your skills are a credit to the crown. Rhaegar, your precision is commendable. Baelor, your strength is undeniable. He then turned to a Kingsguard. Bring water for the princes. And tell the stable master to prepare the carriages. The queen will be expecting us. 2 Kingsguard immediately moved to attend to the princes, while another 2 went to relay the message, ensuring the royal family was always under constant protection. As they drank, Princess Raelle, Maekar's daughter, entered the yard, her silver gold hair flowing behind her, a vibrant splash of color in a riding habit. She was a keen horsewoman, and often joined her brothers for morning rides. 2 Kingsguard accompanied her, their white cloaks stark against the yard's earthy tones. Still at it, brothers? She teased, her voice light. I thought you'd be too exhausted to ride after such a display. Never too exhausted for a ride, sister, Rhaegar replied, offering her a charming smile. Especially when the roads are as smooth as they are now. He gestured towards the gleaming concrete roads that led out of the Red Keep. Indeed, Baelor grunted. No more broken axles on the way to the city gates. Maekar nodded. The Great Hall of the Red Keep was a symphony of light and color, a testament to the Targaryen dynasty's enduring power and the realm's prosperity. Sunlight streamed through the high, arched windows, illuminating the vibrant tapestries depicting dragons and kings. Long, polished tables, laden with platters of food, stretched across the hall. The midday meal was a grand affair, a gathering of the royal family and their closest retainers. Even within the hall, Kingsguard were strategically positioned, to assign to each royal family member, their presence a silent, ever-present shield. At the high table, King Maekar sat at the head, his queen, Rhaenys, beside him. Queen Rhaenys, a woman of striking beauty and sharp wit, presided over the table with grace. To Maekar's right sat Prince Rhaegar, the crown prince, his demeanor thoughtful. Beside him sat his wife, Princess Elia Martell, her Dornish features a graceful counterpoint to his Targaryen silver. Elia, elegant and intelligent, brought a quiet strength to the royal family. Their children, a boy and a girl, sat nearby. The boy, Prince Aemon, already showed a keen intellect, while his younger sister, Princess Daenerys, possessed a fiery spirit that hinted at her Targaryen blood. To Maekar's left sat Prince Baelor, his robust frame filling his chair. 2 Kingsguard were positioned behind him. Beside him sat his wife, Lady Cersei Lannister, her golden hair and emerald eyes a striking presence. Cersei, sharp-tongued and ambitious, had adapted to court life with ruthless efficiency. Their children, 2 boys and a girl, carried the distinct Lannister features, their golden hair gleaming under the hall's light. Each child also had a Kingsguard assigned. Prince Aenar, the eldest, already possessed a shrewd, calculating gaze. Across from them sat Princess Rhaelle, Maekar's daughter, her dark hair and bright eyes reflecting her mother's beauty. Beside her sat her husband, Lord Robert Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End. Robert, boisterous and jovial, brought a hearty laugh and a love for the hunt to the royal family. Their children, a boy and a girl, were a blend of Baratheon strength and Targaryen fire. Prince Stefan, the eldest, was already a strong, athletic boy, while his sister, Princess Myrcella, possessed a gentle charm. Further down the table, but still at the high table, sat other members of the royal family, those who held important positions across the realm. There was Prince Aelor Targaryen, King Maekar's brother, who served as the Lord of Dragonstone. He was a thoughtful man, often found in the ancient libraries of the island. Beside him sat his wife, Princess Viella Targaryen, Maekar's sister, her beauty undimmed by time. They were a quiet, intellectual pair, deeply devoted to their children. Their 2 children, Prince Daeron and Princess Jaehaera, sat with them. Daeron, a serious young man, was already bonded to a dragon, while Jaehaera, known for her gentle nature, was a skilled rider. Further still, sat Prince Aerion Targaryen, King Maekar's other brother, who held the crucial position of Lord of the Stepstones, overseeing the newly integrated kingdom. He was a more martial figure than Aelor, his face weathered by sun and sea. Beside him sat his wife, Princess Diana Targaryen, Maekar's other sister, a woman of fierce spirit and sharp wit. Their 2 children, Prince Valerian and Princess Laena, sat with them. Valerian was a bold, adventurous boy, already showing a talent for naval matters, while Laena was known for her striking beauty and her love of the sea. Each of them also had a Kingsguard assigned. The hall hummed with conversation, the clatter of plates, and the occasional burst of laughter. Servants moved silently, refilling goblets of wine and ale, bringing fresh platters of roasted meats, savory pies, and sweet tarts. King Maekar, though stern, enjoyed these family gatherings. He watched his children and grandchildren, the future of his dynasty, with a sense of quiet pride. The Dragon Council had ensured a stable succession, and his family was flourishing, its branches spreading across the realm. The news from Dragonstone is good, Queen Rhaenys announced, her voice carrying clearly. Another wild dragon has hatched. A fine, scaly beast, they say, already growing quickly. That makes 21, then, Rhaegar commented, a thoughtful smile on his face. The skies of Dragonstone will soon be as crowded as the city streets. Baelor chuckled. Good. We need more dragons. A king can never have too many dragons. Prince Aelor, Lord of Dragonstone, added, indeed. Our wild population thrives. It is a testament to the strength of our line. Elia Martell, ever the diplomat, offered, it is a blessing, your grace. A sign of the dynasty's strength. And a comfort to the realm, knowing such power protects them. Cersei Lannister, however, offered a more pragmatic view. Wild dragons are well and good, but it's the ridden ones that truly matter. 10 adult riders, that's a formidable force. Robert Baratheon, ever direct, boomed, aye. Let them all hatch. More dragons, more glory. And more beasts to hunt wild boars with. Prince Aerion, Lord of the Stepstones, nodded. They certainly keep the pirates in line. A dragon's shadow is a powerful deterrent in the narrow sea. As the meal progressed, the conversation naturally turned to the upcoming event that dominated the realm's attention. The tourney at Dragonhold, King Makar stated, his voice taking on a more serious tone. It is fast approaching. 3 moons, now. Have all the preparations been made? Indeed, Your Grace, Rhaegar confirmed. The college has been abuzz with activity. The lists are being prepared, the pavilions erected, and the guest quarters made ready. It will be a grand affair. Grand is an understatement, Father, Princess Raelle added, her eyes bright with excitement. Every Lord Paramount is confirmed to attend. And with the railway lines, they'll be arriving in record time. Lord Tyrell from Highgarden, Lord Lannister from Castle Rock, Lord Arryn from the Eyrie, it's a testament to the realm's unity. And the Asgardians, Baelor grunted. They'll be coming in force, I imagine. Brandon Stark and his inventions. They will, Makar confirmed. King Rickard Stark has sent word. Prince Brandon Stark and his family will be attending. And many of their northern lords. It will be a true gathering of all the kingdoms. Prince Aelor spoke up. We on Dragonstone are preparing for the journey ourselves. The railway will make it a swift trip, a matter of days rather than weeks by sea. And from the Stepstones, Prince Aerion added, we will take the fastest ships to King's Landing, then join the railway. It will be a welcome change from the usual sea voyage. It will be the biggest tourney Westeros has seen in generations, Rhaegar mused, his gaze distant. A true spectacle of peace. A demonstration of the crown's strength, and the alliances that bind us. And a chance to show that peace still prevails between our kingdoms, Elia Martell added, her voice soft but firm. That the bonds forged in the past have held, and grown stronger. Cersei Lannister, ever practical, offered, it will also be an opportunity to gauge the loyalty of certain houses. To see who comes, and who sends excuses. True enough, Cersei, Makar acknowledged, a hint of his sternness returning. But primarily, it is a celebration. A celebration of a unified realm, of a stable dynasty, and of the progress we have achieved. I hear the students at Dragonhold are quite eager to participate, Princess Raelle said, smiling. They've been training fiercely in the lists, hoping to impress their future king and queen. Good, Makar said, a rare, approving smile touching his lips. That is precisely the spirit we wish to foster. Skill, discipline, and loyalty to the crown. Dragonhold has served its purpose well. The conversation continued, filled with anticipation for the grand tourney. It was more than just a series of jousts and melees, it was a symbol. A symbol of a golden age, of a realm transformed, of a dynasty secure on its throne, protected by dragons and strengthened by alliances. The world had indeed changed, and the Targaryens, with their vast family and their mighty dragons, stood at its unassailable peak. 3 comments 0 vote. Dragonhold 1. 291 AC. Third person POV. Dragonhold. The crisp morning air carried a palpable buzz of anticipation across Westeros. From the icy reaches of the north to the sun-baked sands of Dorne, from the bustling harbors of the Stepstones to the ancient hills of Asgard, the great houses of the realm began their pilgrimages. The destination. Dragonhold, the ancient castle now transformed into the premier academy of the Seven Kingdoms, poised to host the grandest tourney in living memory. From Winterfell, the Stark contingent embarked with a quiet, efficient grandeur, a blend of ancient tradition and cutting-edge innovation. King Rickard Stark, the King of Asgard and Lord of Winterfell, rode at the head of a formidable column. His presence, though less flamboyant than southern monarchs, commanded an undeniable authority. Beside him sat his wife, Queen Lara Stark, née Skoll. Her Asgardian heritage was evident in her serene composure and the subtle shimmer of her garments. The vehicle, a marvel of northern innovation, moved with a steady, rhythmic chug, its polished metal gleaming in the pale sunlight. It left the traditional horse-drawn carriages of their retinue in its dust, a clear demonstration of Asgard's technological lead. This is certainly a faster way to travel, my lord, observed Esser Roderick Castle, the master-at-arms of Winterfell, riding his charger close to Rickard's window. His voice was muffled slightly by the carriage's glass. Indeed, Esser Roderick, Rickard replied, his voice carrying clearly. A rare smile graced his lips, a touch of pride in his son Brandon's ingenuity. Brandon's efforts have shaved weeks off this journey. We'll be at Moat Cailin before the day is out. Behind them, in other, equally advanced steam carriages, were Princess Barbary Ricewell, Brandon's wife, her usual sharp wit softened by the excitement of travel, and her 3 sons. Hadrian, already absorbed in a book of engineering schematics, his brow furrowed in concentration, Barthogen, restless and eager for adventure, peering out at the passing landscape, and young Cregan, observing everything with silent intensity, his eyes missing nothing. Eddard Stark, solemn as ever, rode on horseback beside his wife, Princess Ashara Dane. Her Dornish beauty, with her dark hair and striking violet eyes, seemed a vibrant jewel against the stark northern landscape. Their children, Arthur, Beren, Marlon, and the spirited Diana, were a mix of quiet contemplation and youthful exuberance, their laughter occasionally echoing from their own carriage. As the column snaked through the familiar, still thriving northern countryside, a sense of purpose filled the air. They were heading south, not for war, but for celebration, for peace. This journey, once an arduous trek, was now a demonstration of progress. It was important that a Stark always remained in Winterfell. Thus, back in the ancient castle, Lord Bernard Stark, King Rickard's younger brother, stood as acting lord, a trusted hand left to ensure that a Stark always remained within the ancient walls of their ancestral home. He would oversee the daily affairs of the North, ensuring its continued stability. The northern roads, specifically designed and maintained for these steam-powered vehicles, allowed for unprecedented speed. However, these road vehicles were only used on northern roads. South of Moat Cailin, the terrain and existing infrastructure favored the Grand Railway network. At Moat Cailin, the northern convoy would make the transition. The steam carriages would be garaged, and the Starks, along with their retinues, would board the private cars of the Inter-Kingdom Railway. The North was moving forward, but its roots remained deep, and its innovations, while shared, were also uniquely its own. From King's Landing, the heart of the Seven Kingdoms, came the most magnificent procession of all, a true display of Targaryen power and the realm's newfound unity. King Maekar Targaryen, austere and commanding, rode atop his great black dragon, Balerion, a formidable sight that commanded awe and reverence. The very air seemed to hum with the dragon's ancient power. Beside him, on her own majestic dragon, Vhagar, Sword Queen Rhaenys, her silver hair streaming in the wind. Her presence, a testament to her enduring strength and grace, added to the spectacle. The roar of their dragons, a sound that had once heralded war, now echoed as a powerful declaration of peace and strength, a symbol of an unassailable dynasty. Their sons, Prince Rhaegar, mounted on his swift red dragon, Meraxes, and Prince Baelor, astride the colossal Vermithor, flew ahead, their figures powerful against the blue sky. Their dragons' shadows stretched long over the land, a visible reminder of the crown's might. Below them, a glittering convoy of state carriages, pulled by teams of magnificent horses, began its journey along the newly laid concrete roads. These roads, smooth and durable, were a stark contrast to the muddy tracks of old, allowing for swift and comfortable travel. Inside the carriages, guarded by a formidable contingent of 50 Kingsguard, clad in their immaculate white cloaks, were the rest of the royal family. Each and every member of the royal family was now assigned at least 2 Kingsguard, their gleaming armor a constant, reassuring presence. Princess Elia Martell, graceful and composed, rode beside Prince Rhaegar's children, Prince Aemon and Princess Daenerys. 2 Kingsguard stood watch at their carriage doors. They discussed the latest news from Dorne, connected by the speed of telegrams, marveling at the rapid communication. In another carriage, Princess Cersei Lannister held court, her golden hair catching the light, while her children, Prince Aenar and his siblings, peered out at the passing landscape, their own Kingsguard attentive to their every need. Cersei, always attuned to power, subtly assessed every noble banner they passed, ever calculating. Princess Raelle, Maekar's daughter, conversed animatedly with her husband, Lord Robert Baratheon, whose booming laughter occasionally escaped the carriage windows, a sound of hearty enjoyment. Their children, Stefan and Myrcella, looked forward to the tourneys, melees and feasts, their youthful excitement palpable. The royal procession, a grand display of power and unity, moved with stately purpose towards Dragonhold, a symbol of the realm's new golden age. As the procession moved south, it was met by other branches of the royal family, journeying to Dragonhold from their respective seats of power. The railway network, a testament to Asgardian and Targaryen cooperation, facilitated these grand convergences. From Dragonstone, having traveled the smooth railway line from the coast, came Prince Aelor Targaryen, King Maekar's brother and the Lord of Dragonstone. He was a thoughtful man, often found in the ancient libraries of the island, but now focused on the journey. Beside him sat his wife, Princess Viella Targaryen, Maekar's sister, her beauty undimmed by time. They were a quiet, intellectual pair, deeply devoted to their children, Prince Daeron and Princess Jaehaera, who sat with them, each with their own Kingsguard. The journey was remarkably swift, Prince Aelor remarked to a Kingsguard as their private railway car joined the main royal column. These railways truly bind the realm. We were in King's Landing by midday yesterday, a matter of hours from Dragonstone, rather than days by sea. From the Stepstones, having sailed to the mainland before joining the network of concrete roads and railways, arrived Prince Aerion Targaryen, King Maekar's other brother, who held the crucial position of Lord of the Stepstones, overseeing the newly integrated kingdom. He was a more martial figure than Aelor, his face weathered by sun and sea, his Kingsguard ever vigilant. Beside him sat his wife, Princess Diana Targaryen, Maekar's other sister, a woman of fierce spirit and sharp wit. Their 2 children, Prince Valerian and Princess Laena, sat with them, each with their own Kingsguard. Valerian was a bold, adventurous boy, already showing a talent for naval matters, while Laena was known for her striking beauty and her love of the sea. The routes are clearer than ever, Your Grace, Prince Aerion reported to King Maekar as they briefly met on a stretch of concrete road, the king having descended from his dragon for a moment. No more pirate ships dare challenge our flagged vessels, not with the shadow of a dragon overhead, and the strength of our new fleet. Maekar nodded, pleased. Good. Prosperity flows through those channels. Your diligence ensures it. As the days passed and the mighty convocations neared Dragonhold, the ancient castle transformed into a buzzing hub of activity. Pavilions of every house banner in Westeros sprung up around the grounds, a vibrant tapestry of colors against the green landscape, each a testament to the realm's unity. Lord Tywin Lannister of Castle Rock, his face a mask of shrewd calculation, entered through the main gates in a gilded carriage, its wheels rolling smoothly over the concrete. His eyes, keen and discerning, took in the organized chaos, the smooth roads, the efficient flow of arriving retinues. A few hours later, Lord Mace Tyrell of Highgarden, a man known for his love of feasts and finery, arrived with a vast retinue, his banners of green and gold fluttering proudly. His pavilions, decorated with the green and gold of the Reach, were the most ostentatious, a clear display of southern wealth. He beamed, greeting other lords with hearty handshakes. A grand day for Westeros, wouldn't you say, Lord Tully? He boomed to Lord Edmure Tully of Riverrun, whose more modest entourage had arrived via the Riverlands branch of the railway. Edmure, ever the pragmatic one, wiped his brow. Indeed, Lord Tyrell. Though I admit, the crowds are quite something. At least the railways are holding up. None of the usual delays. Later, as the lords gathered for the evening feast, the Great Hall of Dragonhold, recently expanded and modernized, hummed with conversation. The air was thick with the scent of roasted meat, fine wines, and the ambition of powerful men. Lord Randall Tarley of Hornhill, a man of commanding presence, found himself conversing with Lord Redwyn of the Arbor. The scale of this assembly is unprecedented, Randall mused. It speaks not only to the crown's power but also to the perceived stability of the realm. A true testament to this golden age, and the efficacy of Dragonhold's teachings. Redwyn, ever focused on trade, agreed. Indeed, this peace, this infrastructure, it means prosperity for all, and our ships sail safer seas now that the stepstones are in Iron Throne control. A hush fell over the great hall, a ripple of anticipation spreading through the assembled nobility. The doors to the main courtyard, leading to the railway station, had just opened. King Maekar Targaryen and Queen Rhaenys, along with their immediate family and a substantial contingent of their 50 Kingsguard, stood at the entrance to the Great Hall, ready to receive the last, and arguably most anticipated, arrivals. Then, the murmurs began to grow, turning into excited whispers. Through the archway, escorted by their own loyal northern guards, came the Stark contingent. At their head walked King Rickard Stark, his dark furs and strong, unyielding presence a striking contrast to the vibrant colors of the southern court. Beside him, Queen Laera Stark, her Asgardian grace evident in her every movement, radiated a quiet dignity. Behind them followed Prince Brandon Stark, the architect of so much of the realm's progress, with his wife Princess Barbary Ricewell and their 3 sons. Then came Prince Eddard Stark and Princess Ashara Dane with their children. The entire Stark family, a formidable and respected presence, entered the hall. King Maekar's face, usually stern, softened into a welcoming smile as his eyes met King Rickard's. He stepped forward, his Kingsguard moving with him, a clear path opening through the assembled lords. King Rickard, Maekar boomed, his voice resonating with royal authority, yet carrying a note of genuine warmth. Welcome to Dragonhold. It is a true honor to have the King of Asgard and Lord of Winterfell grace our halls. He extended a hand, palm up, in a gesture of welcome and respect. Rickard Stark met his gaze, his own expression one of quiet respect. He took Maekar's hand in a firm, unyielding grip, a testament to the strength of both men. King Maekar, Rickard replied, his voice a low, steady rumble, the honor is ours. This gathering is a testament to the strength of your reign, and the enduring peace between our kingdoms. Their handshake, firm and symbolic, was a silent reaffirmation of the century-old alliance, a powerful visual for all the assembled lords. It was the meeting of the dragon and the wolf, the old world and the new, united in purpose and prosperity. Queen Rhaenys then stepped forward, offering a gracious welcome to Queen Laera, and the 2 royal families began their formal greetings, a grand tableau of power, alliance, and the promise of a unified future. The tourney was more than a mere competition. It was a grand statement, echoing through the unified kingdoms. Peace endured, prosperity thrived, and the Targaryen dynasty, alongside its steadfast allies in Asgard, stood unyielding at the apex of a transformed world. The roads, the railways, the telegrams, the dragons, all spoke of a new era, carefully constructed, seemingly unshakable. 5 comments 0 vote. Dragonhold 2. 291 AC. Third person POV. Dragonhold. The first rays of dawn on the day of the Dragonhold tourney did not merely illuminate the sky, they ignited a spark of electric anticipation across the sprawling grounds of the ancient castle. The air, usually crisp and quiet in the Riverlands, now thrummed with a vibrant energy, a symphony of waking sounds. From countless pavilions, erected in a kaleidoscope of house banners, came the murmur of thousands stirring from sleep. The scent of wood smoke, of roasting meats already being prepared for the grand midday meal, mingled with the fresh dew on the grass. Dragonhold, usually a place of quiet study and disciplined training, had been utterly transformed. Its vast outer fields, meticulously prepared, now boasted grand jousting lists, archery ranges, and open grounds for various contests. The stands, built from sturdy timber, rose in tiers, already beginning to fill with eager spectators. Common folk, who had traveled for days, even weeks, from distant villages, jostled for the best vantage points. Nobles, their fine clothes rustling, took their places in reserved sections, their faces alight with a mixture of excitement and polite curiosity. The sheer scale of the gathering was breathtaking, a testament to the decades of peace and prosperity under Targaryen rule. The sun climbed higher, casting a golden glow over the scene. The sounds intensified. The distant neighing of horses, the clatter of armor, the excited chatter of the crowds, the occasional roar of a dragon from its distant perch on the nearby hills. By mid-morning, the main arena was a sea of faces. The stands overflowed, and thousands more lined the ropes, craning their necks for a glimpse of the spectacle. The banners of every major house in Westeros, from the dire wolf of Stark to the lion of Lannister, the sunspear of Martell to the stag of Baratheon, fluttered proudly in the breeze. A hush fell as a fanfare of trumpets blared, echoing across the grounds. All eyes turned to the grand pavilion, draped in the black and red of House Targaryen. From within, the royal procession emerged, a dazzling display of power and unity. King Maekar Targaryen, austere and regal, walked beside Queen Rhaenys, her silver hair gleaming. Their sons, Prince Rhaegar and Prince Baelor, followed, radiating youthful strength. Princess Elia Martell, Princess Cersei Lannister, Princess Rhaelle, and Lord Robert Baratheon completed the immediate royal family, a vibrant tapestry of alliances. Each member was attended by their Kingsguard, their white cloaks a stark, reassuring presence. Then came the Stark royal family, walking with a quiet dignity that commanded equal respect. King Rickard Stark, with Queen Lara by his side, his face a mask of solemn pride. Their sons, Prince Brandon and Prince Eddard, with their wives and children, followed, a powerful contingent from the north. The two royal families met at the center of the arena, a symbolic convergence. King Maekar and King Rickard exchanged a firm handshake, a silent reaffirmation of the unbreakable bond between dragon and wolf. Queen Rhaenys and Queen Lara embraced, a warm, genuine gesture of friendship. The sight drew a roar of approval from the crowd, a clear message of unity echoing across the realm. King Maekar stepped forward, his voice, though not loud, carried with powerful authority. "My lords, my ladies, good people of Westeros," he boomed, his voice resonating through the arena. "Welcome, welcome to Dragonhold, welcome to this grand tourney." A cheer erupted, deafening in its intensity. For over a century, Maekar continued, our realm has known peace, prosperity, and progress. We have built roads of stone and iron, tamed the seas, and brought unity to a once divided land. This tourney is a celebration of that peace. A celebration of our unity. A celebration of the strength of the Seven Kingdoms. He gestured to the various fields. Let the games begin. Let skill and valor be shown. Let the spirit of friendly competition bind us closer still. For the crown. For the realm. For the future. Another roar, even louder than before, filled the air. The tourney had officially begun. The first major contest of the day was the archery contest, held on a vast, open range beyond the main arena. Targets, marked with concentric rings, were set at varying distances, from close range for the less experienced to extreme distances for the masters. The competition drew a diverse crowd. Students from Dragonhold, their bows gleaming, stood alongside seasoned lords, their quivers filled with finely fletched arrows. Even some common folk, known for their hunting prowess, were permitted to enter, their simple longbows a stark contrast to the ornate weapons of the nobility. The Dragonhold students, trained in precision and discipline, performed admirably. Sir Gareth, a tall, earnest young man from the Riverlands, hit the bullseye at 50 paces with effortless grace, drawing polite applause. Lady Alara, a student from the Reach, showed surprising strength, her arrows finding their mark with consistent accuracy. The Winterhold students, however, brought a different kind of skill. They were less about formal stance and more about raw, instinctive accuracy, honed by hunting in the unforgiving northern wilds. A young Winterhold student named Torrhen, his face grimly determined, used a heavier longbow, his arrows flying with a powerful thwack that seemed to pierce the very air. He consistently hit the inner rings at longer distances, drawing murmurs of appreciation from the crowd. Among the common folk, a grizzled old hunter named Old Man Willow, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, drew a battered, ancient longbow. He was dismissed by some, but his first arrow, loosed with deceptive ease, split the very center of the furthest target. A gasp went through the crowd. Old Man Willow merely offered a toothless grin, his eyes twinkling. He continued to shoot, his arrows finding their mark with uncanny consistency, proving that skill knew no social bounds. Lord Rickard Stark watched with a keen eye, a faint smile touching his lips as the northern archers performed. King Maekar, too, observed intently, impressed by the raw talent on display. The final round pitted Torrhen, the Winterhold student, against Old Man Willow. The tension was palpable, both were tied. Torrhen, with a deep breath, loosed his arrow. It flew true, hitting the very edge of the bullseye. A cheer erupted. Old Man Willow stepped forward, his bow seeming to sigh in his hands. He took his time, his gaze fixed on the target. Then, with a smooth, almost imperceptible movement, he released the string. The arrow whistled through the air, a blur of fletching. It struck the target, not just hitting the bullseye, but splitting Torrhen's arrow clean in two, a feat of impossible precision. A roar of astonishment and delight erupted from the crowd. Old Man Willow, the commoner, had won the archery contest. He merely bowed, a humble smile on his face, accepting the cheers of both commoners and nobles. The afternoon saw the arena transformed for the foot races and obstacle course. This was a test of raw athleticism, speed, and endurance, designed to challenge the participants in different ways. The course wound through the outer grounds, featuring low walls to vault, muddy pits to traverse, nets to crawl under, and even a short, steep climb up a specially constructed timber tower. The Dragonhold students, trained for agility and quick bursts of speed, excelled in the initial sprints and vaulting sections. Their movements were fluid, almost practiced, reflecting their structured physical education. Young Loris, a Dragonhold student from the Reach, was a blur of motion, his light frame seemingly flying over the obstacles. He took an early lead, his breathing even, his focus absolute. The Winterhold students, however, possessed a different kind of endurance, a hardiness forged in the long, cold marches of the north. They might not have the initial burst of speed, but they were relentless. A stocky Winterhold student named Alan, his muscles thick and powerful, seemed to draw strength from the very ground. He powered through the muddy pits, his heavy boots churning, and scaled the timber tower with surprising speed, his grip unwavering. The common folk, many of them laborers or farmers, brought their own brand of rugged strength. They were less refined, but their bodies were hardened by years of physical toil. A young woman from a nearby village, known only as Alara, surprised many. She was small, but incredibly agile, weaving through the obstacles with a natural grace that belied her simple clothes. She moved with a quiet determination, her eyes fixed on the finish line. The race was grueling. Competitors stumbled, fell, and gasped for breath. The crowd roared its encouragement, cheering on their favorites, marveling at the sheer athleticism on display. In the end, it was a photo finish. Sir Loris, the Dragonhold student, pushed himself to his absolute limit, collapsing across the finish line just a hair's breadth ahead of Alan, the Winterhold student. Alara, the commoner, came in a close third, her chest heaving, but a triumphant grin on her face. King Maekar applauded heartily, impressed by the grit shown by all. King Rickard nodded, a look of approval in his eyes. The Northmen, though Alan had lost, cheered his endurance, recognizing the strength of their own. 2 comments 0 vote. Dragonhold 3. 292 AC. Dragonhold. Third person POV. First day afternoon culminated in the sword fighting contest, held in the main arena. This was a test of skill, discipline, and controlled aggression, fought with blunted steel blades to minimize serious injury, though bruises and broken bones were not uncommon. The contest was open to students, knights, and even some commoners who could prove their proficiency. The Dragonhold students, trained in the refined styles of southern knighthood, moved with elegance and precision. Jory, a Dragonhold student and a distant cousin of the Tyrells, was a master of the flowing, defensive style, his blade a silver blur, deflecting every attack with effortless grace. He moved like a dancer, his footwork impeccable. The Winterhold students, however, fought with a more direct, aggressive style, favoring powerful, decisive blows and relentless pressure. Their movements were less about flourish and more about effectiveness, honed by the brutal realities of northern sparring. Prince Brandon Stark, King Rickard's son, stepped into the arena, his presence commanding attention. He wielded his blunted longsword with a chilling precision, his movements economical, every strike aimed at finding an opening, every parry a setup for a counter. He moved like a seasoned veteran, his eyes cold and focused. He faced a seasoned knight from the Stormlands, Esser Duncan. Esser Duncan was strong, experienced, but Brandon's movements were on another level entirely. He moved with a speed that seemed almost supernatural, a blur of focused intent. Brandon disarmed Esser Duncan with a swift, unexpected move, then tapped his blunted blade against the knight's throat. Esser Duncan yielded, breathing heavily, a look of stunned respect on his face. The crowd roared its approval, amazed by the Asgardian prince's skill. King Maekar nodded, his eyes narrowed in a thoughtful expression. King Rickard, however, merely watched, a quiet pride in his son's prowess. The common folk, too, showed surprising skill. A blacksmith from a nearby village, a burly man named Gendry, fought with a raw, powerful style, his movements unrefined but incredibly effective. He defeated 2 minor knights before finally being bested by a Dragonhold student. The final match was between Prince Rhaegar, the Crown Prince of the Iron Throne, and Prince Brandon Stark, the Crown Prince of Asgard. The crowd held its breath. This was a clash of titans, a duel between the finest swordsmen of their respective kingdoms. They moved with a grace that was almost mesmerizing. Rhaegar, elegant and precise, his blade a silver dance. Brandon was moving as if he knew Rhaegar's next move. The clash of blunted steel echoed through the arena, a symphony of skill and power. Rhaegar attacked blow after blow for several minutes, not gaining any advantage, their movements a blur of controlled aggression. Finally, in a sudden, explosive burst of speed, Brandon made an opening. His blade snapped forward, disarming Rhaegar with a sharp clang. Before Rhaegar could react, Brandon's blunted blade was at his throat. Rhaegar, though panting, offered a respectful nod. Well fought, Prince Brandon. Your skill is unmatched. Brandon lowered his blade, a rare, genuine smile touching his lips. And yours, Prince Rhaegar, is a testament to the finest training in the South. The crowd erupted in a thunderous roar, a mixture of awe and excitement. The North had won the sword fighting. The day concluded with the mounted games, a display of horsemanship and weapon mastery, but without the full contact of a joust. This included ring tilting, where riders had to spear small rings hanging from posts, and quintain, where they struck a rotating target. The Dornish riders, with their nimble horses and light lances, excelled at the ring tilting, their movements fluid and precise. Prince Aemon, Rhaegar's son, showed surprising skill for his age, spearing several rings with effortless grace. The Stormlanders, with their powerful destriers, dominated the quintain, their heavy lances striking the rotating target with bone-jarring force. Lord Robert Baratheon himself, though older, still showed a formidable strength, shattering the quintain with a single, powerful blow. The Northmen, accustomed to riding through difficult terrain, showed excellent control over their mounts. Prince Eddard Stark, riding his powerful warhorse, demonstrated a quiet mastery, his movements economical and effective. The Dragonhold students, trained in the refined art of chivalry, performed admirably, their lances straight, their posture perfect. The Winterhold students, though less flashy, were equally effective, their movements efficient and direct. The day ended with a grand display of horsemanship, a final testament to the martial prowess of the realm. As dusk settled, the great hall of Dragonhold, now fully prepared for the evening feast, came alive. Thousands of candles cast a warm, golden glow, illuminating the vibrant banners and the smiling faces of the assembled lords and ladies. The feast was a lavish affair, a continuous procession of roasted meats, savory pies, fresh fruits, and sweet pastries. Wine and ale flowed freely, filling goblets carved from crystal and horn. The atmosphere was one of joyous revelry. The tensions of the day's competitions melted away, replaced by camaraderie and celebration. Bards sang ballads of ancient heroes and recent victories, their voices filling the hall. Lords from the north mingled with their southern counterparts, sharing stories, exchanging boasts, and forging new connections. The common folk, who had participated in the games, were allowed into the outer sections of the hall, their cheers and laughter adding to the festive din. King Maekar and King Rickard sat at the high table, their conversation easy, discussing the day's events, the performances of their sons, and the future of the realm. Queen Rhaenys and Queen Lara conversed with grace, their shared experiences as queens bridging the cultural divide. Prince Rhaegar and Prince Brandon Stark, having faced each other in the lists, now shared a goblet of wine, discussing the intricacies of sword fighting, their mutual respect evident. Your technique is unique, Prince Brandon, Rhaegar commented, a thoughtful look on his face. Less about the traditional forms, more about raw efficiency. Brandon nodded. The North teaches us to fight for survival, Prince Rhaegar. Not for glory in the lists. Though I admit, your grace with a blade is truly something to behold. Elia Martell and Ashara Dane conversed warmly, their shared Dornish heritage and their connection to the Starks forming a natural bond. Cersei Lannister, ever the observer, watched the mingling, assessing the new power dynamics. The students of Dragonhold and Winterhold, having competed fiercely throughout the day, now shared tables, their rivalries softened by shared food and drink. They spoke of their training, their hopes for the future, and the marvels of the world. The feast was more than just a meal, it was a living embodiment of the peace and unity that had been forged over the past century and a half. The dragon and the wolf, the north and the south, the commoner and the noble, all gathered under one roof, celebrating a golden age that seemed destined to last forever. The first day of the tourney had been a resounding success, a vibrant tapestry of skill, camaraderie, and the enduring promise of a unified Westeros. 3 comments 0 vote. Dragonhold 4. 292 AC. Dragonhold. Third person POV. The second day dawned with the promise of the joust, the most anticipated event of any tourney. The main lists, freshly sanded and adorned with the banners of competing houses, gleamed under the morning sun. The air crackled with excitement, a palpable tension mixed with eager anticipation. Knights, clad in polished armor that reflected the morning light, rode their magnificent destriers, their lances held high, ready to splinter on their opponents' shields. The ground vibrated with the pawing of hooves, the snorts of powerful warhorses. The stands were packed even tighter than the day before, a sea of eager faces stretching as far as the eye could see. The common folk pressed against the ropes, their cheers a constant roar, a wave of sound that rose and fell with each charge. The nobility in the stands leaned forward, keen to witness displays of chivalry and skill, their whispers of bets and predictions adding to the din. The preliminary rounds began with a flourish of trumpets, their brassy notes echoing across the lists. Knight after knight charged, their lances meeting with bone-jarring impacts that sent shivers through the crowd. Some lances splintered cleanly, sending shards of wood flying like deadly confetti. Others missed their mark entirely, drawing groans and sighs of disappointment from the spectators. A young Dragonhold knight, Esser Gareth from the Riverlands, made an impressive showing. His armor, polished to a mirror sheen, reflected the sun as he rode with perfect posture, a paragon of southern chivalry. He unhorsed 2 opponents with clean, decisive hits, drawing cheers from the Dragonhold students, who waved their banners with renewed fervor. Lord Tywin Lannister's eldest son, Esser Jaime, rode with a cold, precise efficiency that was almost unnerving. His lance found its mark with chilling accuracy, unhorsing 3 knights in quick succession. He rode with a grim determination, his face unsmiling, focused only on victory, a true lion of the West. From the north, Prince Eddard Stark entered the lists, his dark armor a stark contrast to the brighter southern styles. He rode a powerful, shaggy warhorse, its hooves kicking up dust. His lance was held steady, his posture unwavering. He was not as flashy as some, but his hits were solid, his defense unyielding. He unhorsed one knight with a powerful blow, then gracefully broke his lance on another's shield, earning a quiet nod of approval from King Rickard. The crowd roared with every splintered lance, every unhorsed knight, their excitement building with each pass. The ground trembled with the thunder of hooves, and the air filled with the cries of the heralds, announcing each victor. King Maekar and Queen Rhaenys watched from the royal box, their expressions serious, assessing the skill of the realm's finest knights. King Rickard and Queen Lara observed with quiet pride, particularly when a northern rider made a good showing, a subtle smile playing on their lips. The day concluded with many knights advancing to the next rounds, the promise of even fiercer competition hanging in the air. The feast that night was filled with tales of broken lances and valiant charges, the excitement of the joust dominating all conversation, as lords and ladies debated who would emerge victorious. Day 3 brought the much-anticipated melee, a chaotic, exhilarating free-for-all that tested a warrior's endurance, skill, and ability to fight in a swirling mass of combatants. It was divided into 2 parts, a foot melee in the morning and a mounted melee in the afternoon, each promising a different kind of spectacle. The foot melee was a brutal, swirling dance of steel. Knights, squires, and even some commoners entered the lists, armed with blunted swords, axes, and maces. The goal was simple: disarm or force your opponent to yield, or simply outlast them. The Dragonhold students, trained in coordinated maneuvers and precise footwork, moved in small, disciplined groups, their movements fluid and precise. Sir Loris, the nimble student from the Reach, darted through the fray, his light blade tapping opponents into submission with surprising speed and grace. The Winterhold students, however, brought a raw, unyielding ferocity. They fought with a direct, powerful style, favoring powerful, decisive blows and relentless pressure, honed by the harsh realities of northern sparring. Prince Benjen Stark, King Rickard's third son, entered the melee, a whirlwind of controlled aggression. He moved with a powerful, almost primal energy, his blunted axe swinging with devastating force, forcing several opponents to yield with sharp, decisive blows. A commoner, the burly blacksmith Gendry, who had impressed in the sword fighting on day one, once again showed his raw strength. He wielded a heavy blunted hammer, his blows capable of sending even armored knights sprawling. He lasted for an impressive amount of time, a true fan favorite, drawing cheers from the common folk. The melee was a continuous roar of clashing steel, grunts of effort, and the shouts of the crowd, a symphony of controlled violence. Warriors were pushed back, disarmed, or simply too exhausted to continue, collapsing in heaps of armor. The mounted melee in the afternoon was even more chaotic and thunderous. Knights on horseback, their blunted weapons ready, charged into the fray, the ground trembling under the thunder of hoofs. Dust rose in choking clouds, obscuring the view. Prince Baelor Targaryen, a bull of a man, was a force of nature in the mounted melee. He rode his great destrier with powerful control, his blunted greatsword swinging in wide, devastating arcs. He cleared paths through the melee, unhorsing several knights with sheer force, his strength undeniable, a true Targaryen war prince. Lord Robert Baratheon, ever eager for a good fight, rode with a wild, joyful abandon. His warhammer, though blunted, still packed a terrifying punch, sending opponents reeling. He roared with laughter as he charged, a true warrior in his element, seemingly enjoying every moment of the chaos. The melee continued until only a handful of warriors remained, exhausted but triumphant. Prince Baelor Targaryen was declared the victor of the mounted melee, his powerful display leaving no doubt of his martial prowess. The day ended with exhausted but exhilarated warriors, and a crowd sated by the spectacle of raw combat, eagerly discussing the day's heroes. Day 4 brought a welcome change of pace, moving away from the brutal clashes of steel to more refined, traditional noble pursuits, the falconry and hunting competition. The events were held in the vast, wooded lands surrounding Dragonhold, showcasing the beauty of trained birds and the skill of trackers. The morning began with the falconry display. Lords and ladies brought their finest birds, magnificent falcons, majestic hawks, and even a few rarer eagles, trained to hunt small game. The air filled with the sharp cries of the birds and the excited murmurs of the spectators. The Targaryen family, with their deep connection to the skies and their dragons, showed a particular affinity for the birds. Prince Rhaegar's falcon, a sleek peregrine named Whisper, soared gracefully, a dark speck against the blue sky, diving with breathtaking speed to snatch a lure from the air, drawing gasps of admiration from the crowd. Princess Rael's hawk, a powerful gerfalcon, hunted with fierce precision, bringing down a rabbit with effortless skill, a true hunter's instinct. The northern lords, accustomed to hunting in their own harsh lands, also displayed impressive skill. Prince Eddard Stark's own hawk, a magnificent gray bird, flew with a quiet efficiency, its movements precise and deadly. It was a hunter's bird, honed by necessity. The afternoon transitioned into the hunting competition, a test of tracking, stealth, and marksmanship with bows and spears. Small game had been released into a designated, vast section of the woods, ensuring a fair challenge for all participants. The Dornish contingent, with their light, agile horses and keen eyes, excelled at tracking. Prince Aemon, Rhaegar's son, showed a surprising aptitude for the hunt, his quiet demeanor belying a sharp eye and steady hand with a bow. He returned with a fine buck, drawing praise from his father, Prince Rhaegar, who clapped him on the shoulder. The Northmen, natural hunters forged by a lifetime in the wilderness, moved through the woods with a quiet efficiency. Prince Eddard Stark, with his calm demeanor, proved to be an excellent tracker, his knowledge of the forest profound. He returned with a brace of pheasants and a wild boar, his skills honed by a lifetime in the wilderness, a true son of the north. The competition was less about brute force and more about patience, observation, and respect for the natural world. It was a quieter, more contemplative event, allowing for mingling and conversation among the lords and ladies as they rode through the picturesque woods, enjoying the fresh air and the thrill of the chase. King Maekar and King Rickard rode together for a portion of the hunt, discussing the various hunting techniques, the state of the forests, and the importance of preserving the realm's natural resources. Their conversation was easy, a shared appreciation for the land and its bounty. The day concluded with a more intimate feast, featuring the day's catches, celebrated with stories of the hunt and the prowess of the birds and their masters. The atmosphere was one of camaraderie and shared enjoyment. Day 5 was dedicated to a variety of physical and horsemanship challenges, designed to showcase different types of strength, agility, and mastery over beasts. These events often saw more common folk participating, their raw power and natural talent shining through, often surprising the nobility. The morning began with feats of strength. The stone put, where competitors hurled heavy, smooth stones for distance, and the tug of war, a grueling test of collective might, were popular events, drawing large, boisterous crowds. The Northmen, with their robust frames and hardy upbringing, dominated the stone put. Prince Benjen Stark, King Rickard's third son, hurled a stone further than any other competitor, his powerful muscles rippling with effort. He won the event with a resounding throw, his strength undeniable, drawing cheers from the northern contingent and nods of respect from the southerners. The tug of war saw teams of commoners, laborers, and even some knights pitted against each other. The contest was a grueling display of raw power and teamwork, with men grunting and straining, their faces red with effort, their muscles bulging. A team of burly blacksmiths from a nearby town eventually won, their collective strength proving insurmountable, much to the delight of the common folk. The afternoon shifted to horsemanship challenges, testing skill and agility on horseback. This included horse archery, where riders shot arrows at targets while galloping at full speed, and an obstacle riding course, a challenging maze of jumps, turns, and tight passages designed to test a rider's control and a horse's agility. The Dornish, with their light, agile horses and riders, excelled at horse archery. Prince Aemon, Rhaegar's son, demonstrated a remarkable natural talent, hitting targets with impressive accuracy while maintaining a swift pace, his movements fluid and precise. The Stormlanders, with their powerful destriers, showed their prowess in the obstacle riding course. Lord Robert Baratheon, despite his bulk, rode with surprising agility, guiding his massive horse through the course with a booming laugh and a fierce determination, his skill undeniable. The Winterhold students, accustomed to riding through difficult, uneven terrain in the north, showed a unique blend of control and adaptability. The day was a vibrant display of athleticism and mastery, showcasing the diverse talents present across the realm. The common folk, participating alongside nobility, added to the lively atmosphere, their cheers and shouts echoing across the grounds, celebrating every triumph. Day 6 was the grand climax of the martial contests, the most anticipated day of the tourney. The air was thick with tension and excitement, the stands packed to overflowing, a sea of faces eager for the final, decisive clashes. The morning was dedicated to the jousting finals. Only the most skilled and fortunate knights remained, having survived the brutal preliminaries. The crowd roared with every charge, every splintered lance, every unhorsed opponent, their excitement reaching a fever pitch. Jaime Lannister rode with cold, ruthless efficiency, his lance striking with devastating accuracy. He unhorsed several formidable opponents, his face a mask of grim determination, his focus absolute. He was a machine of precision. Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, however, rode with a grace and skill that seemed almost effortless. His lance found its mark with poetic precision, unhorsing his opponents with fluid, almost beautiful movements. He was a true champion of the lists, his chivalry as striking as his skill, a paragon of Targaryen prowess. The final joust came down to Prince Rhaegar versus Jaime Lannister. The crowd was on the edge of its seat, barely breathing. The clash of lances was deafening, the splintering wood a sharp crack in the air, a sound of raw power. In the end, after 3 exhilarating passes, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen unhorsed Sir Jaime with a perfectly aimed lance, sending the Lannister heir sprawling in the dust. A roar of triumph erupted from the crowd, acknowledging the Crown Prince's victory. Rhaegar was crowned the champion of the joust, a fitting display of the Targaryen dynasty's martial prowess. The afternoon brought the grand melee, a chaotic, exhilarating free-for-all involving dozens of knights and warriors, fighting on foot with blunted weapons. It was a test of endurance, skill, and strategic thinking in a swirling mass of combatants, a true test of a warrior's mettle. Prince Baelor Targaryen was a formidable presence, a bull in the melee, his greatsword clearing paths through the fray with powerful, sweeping blows. Lord Robert Baratheon fought with his usual boisterous ferocity, his warhammer a blur of destructive power. From the north, Prince Brandon Stark entered the melee, his movements precise and deadly. He moved through the chaos with an almost unsettling calm, his blunted longsword finding openings, disarming opponents with swift, economical movements. He fought with a focus that set him apart, a quiet storm of skill, a true master of the blade. The melee raged for hours, a continuous roar of clashing steel, grunts of effort, and the shouts of the crowd. Warriors were pushed back, disarmed, or simply too exhausted to continue, collapsing in heaps of armor and exhaustion. In the end, after a grueling, hours-long battle, only a handful of warriors remained standing. Prince Brandon Stark emerged as the victor of the grand melee. His face didn't break a sweat, his eyes clear and triumphant. He had outlasted and outfought every other combatant, a testament to his unparalleled skill and endurance. The crowd, exhausted but thrilled, roared its approval for both the jousting champion, Prince Rhaegar, and the melee champion, Prince Brandon Stark. The day concluded with a sense of immense satisfaction, the martial prowess of the realm having been displayed in all its glory. The seventh and final day of the Dragonhold tourney was a more relaxed affair, a culmination of the week-long celebration. The morning was dedicated to lighter contests and exhibitions, allowing for more mingling and informal gatherings. There were equestrian displays, showcasing the intricate training of horses, and a grand display of Asgardian blimps soaring gracefully over the castle, a silent marvel that drew gasps of awe from the southern lords. Prince Brandon Stark himself explained the mechanics to King Maekar and the Dragon Council, who watched with keen interest, marveling at the northern ingenuity. Later, a grand feast was held in the Great Hall, even more lavish than the opening night. The hall overflowed with lords, ladies, knights, and common folk, all celebrating the success of the tourney and the enduring peace of the realm. The champions of each event were honored, receiving their prizes from King Maekar and Queen Rhaenys. Prince Rhaegar accepted his prize for the joust with a humble smile, acknowledging the cheers. Prince Brandon Stark, receiving his prize for the melee, drew a particularly loud cheer from the northern contingent, a roar of pride for their champion. Old Man Willow, the commoner who won the archery, received his prize with a toothless grin, a symbol of the tourney's openness and the recognition of talent regardless of birth. As the night deepened and the feast reached its crescendo, a hush fell over the hall once more. King Maekar Targaryen rose from his seat at the high table, his presence commanding immediate silence. His voice, though not loud, resonated with authority and a profound sense of purpose. "My lords, my ladies, good people of the Seven Kingdoms," he began, his gaze sweeping over the vast assembly, from the highest noble to the humblest commoner. "For 7 days, we have gathered here at Dragonhold. We have witnessed feats of skill, courage, and strength. We have seen the finest warriors of our realm compete with honor and valor. We have celebrated together, eaten together, and shared in the spirit of friendly competition." He paused, allowing his words to sink in, his eyes meeting those of King Rickard Stark, who stood with his family, a pillar of strength. He then looked directly at Prince Brandon and Prince Eddard, acknowledging their contributions. "This tourney," Maekar continued, his voice gaining power, "is more than just games. It is a testament to the peace that has reigned over our realm for over a century. A peace hard won, and diligently maintained. It is a testament to the unity of the Seven Kingdoms and Asgard. It is a testament to the strength of House Targaryen, and to the wisdom of the Dragon Council, which ensures stability and capable rule for generations to come. And it is a testament to our steadfast allies, the kings of Asgard, whose ingenuity and strength have helped build the very foundations of this golden age, from the railways that bind us to the swift messages that connect us, and whose sons, Prince Brandon, Prince Eddard and Prince Benjen, have shown such valor in the lists." He raised his goblet high. "To all who have come. To all who have competed. To all who have celebrated. May this peace endure. May our realm continue to prosper. And may the bonds forged here, between houses, between kingdoms, between commoner and noble, grow ever stronger. For the crown, for the realm, for the future." A thunderous roar erupted from the hall, a unified, joyful sound that shook the very foundations of Dragonhold. Goblets clanged, cheers echoed, and the music swelled, a triumphant symphony. The tourney had been a resounding success. It was a powerful display of unity, strength, and the enduring peace of a realm transformed. The golden age of Westeros, under the watchful eyes of dragons and the steady hand of its kings, seemed destined to last forever. 0 comments 0 vote. Dragonhold, Final. 292 AC. Dragonhold. Third person POV. The day after the grand tourney, the festive atmosphere of Dragonhold had given way to a more subdued, yet equally purposeful, air. The pavilions still stood, but the throngs of common folk had begun their journeys home, leaving the castle grounds to the nobility and their retinues. Within the ancient walls of Dragonhold, far from the bustling lists and feasting halls, a private meeting of immense consequence was convened. The chamber was smaller, more intimate than the Great Hall, its stone walls absorbing sound, creating an atmosphere of hushed gravity. A single, polished oak table dominated the room, surrounded by comfortable, high-backed chairs. The attendees were few, but their power was immense. On one side sat the Targaryen patriarchs, King Maekar Targaryen, his stern features unyielding, but his eyes holding a deep intelligence. Beside him were his brothers, Prince Aelor Targaryen, Lord of Dragonstone, a man of quiet wisdom, and Prince Aerion Targaryen, Lord of the Stepstones, his martial bearing softened by the calm of the room. Prince Rhaegar, the Crown Prince, thoughtful and composed, and Prince Baelor, powerful and direct, completed the Targaryen contingent. Opposite them sat the Starks, radiating their customary northern strength. King Rickard Stark, the King of Asgard and Warden of the North, held himself with a quiet dignity. Beside him sat his sons, Prince Brandon Stark, the visionary inventor whose mind raced far beyond the present, Prince Eddard Stark, and Prince Benjen, his younger brothers, ever honorable and steadfast. The initial hours of the meeting were dedicated to the future. They discussed trade relationships, the roots of the burgeoning railway network, and the potential for further developments and technological exchange. Rickard spoke of Asgard's advancements in engineering, offering blueprints for new port technologies and more efficient mining techniques. Maekar, in turn, outlined the Crown's plans for urban expansion and agricultural modernization in the south. They deliberated on shared economic ventures, on the mutual benefits of seamless trade between their two mighty kingdoms. The discussions were pragmatic, forward-thinking, and underscored the deep, enduring alliance that had shaped Westeros for over a century. The atmosphere was one of collaboration, of two powerful entities working in harmony for collective prosperity. As the talks concluded, reaching a consensus on the next 5 years of joint ventures and reciprocal benefits, a subtle shift occurred in the room. King Rickard Stark, who had contributed diligently to the trade discussions, leaned back slightly in his chair. His gaze, which had been focused on the maps and ledgers, now settled directly on King Maekar. King Maekar, Rickard began, his voice dropping slightly, a change in tone that immediately commanded attention. The casual hum of agreement in the room faded. Did your predecessor, Rickard continued, his eyes piercing, ever tell you about the Aegon's prophecy? The words hung in the air, a sudden, unexpected question that shattered the comfortable atmosphere of trade and progress. King Maekar's usually stern face underwent a startling transformation. His eyes widened, a flicker of something akin to genuine shock, followed swiftly by a flash of unease, crossed his features. He stiffened in his seat. He held Rickard's gaze for a long moment, a silent acknowledgement passing between the two kings. Then, slowly, with a barely perceptible nod, Maekar confirmed, yes. My father. He spoke of it. In hushed tones, as his father did before him. The Targaryen princes, who had been listening intently, exchanged confused glances. Aegon's prophecy. They had never heard of it. The king's sudden distress was unsettling. Rickard's expression grew more grave. The time for that darkness to approach, he stated, his voice low and resonant, is coming, King Maekar. And we, the realm, must be prepared. King Maekar's composure, usually unshakable, visibly faltered. A look of outright panic, raw and unconcealed, spread across his face. His hands clenched on the table, his knuckles turning white. The color drained from his cheeks, leaving them ashen. The Targaryen family members in the room, witnessing their formidable king's sudden distress, immediately grew worried. Prince Rhaegar's brow furrowed with deep concern. Prince Baelor shifted uneasily in his chair, his usual confidence replaced by a rare unease. Prince Aelor and Prince Aerion exchanged worried glances. Father! Prince Rhaegar exclaimed, his voice sharp with concern. What is it? What prophecy? What darkness are you speaking of? What is happening, Your Grace? Prince Baelor demanded, his voice tinged with alarm. Why do you look so distressed? King Maekar took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to regain his composure. He ran a hand over his face, his eyes still wide with an unsettling dread. The silence in the room was absolute, everyone hanging on his every word. The prophecy, Maekar finally managed to say, his voice strained, passed down from king to heir, from Aegon the Conqueror himself. A secret guarded by our house for centuries. A warning. He looked at his sons, his brothers, his gaze filled with a terrible weight. Aegon foresaw a great winter, a darkness that would come from the true north. A darkness that would extinguish all life, all warmth, unless a Targaryen was on the Iron Throne, united with the realm, to face it. Rickard Stark then continued, his voice barely a whisper. We call it, the Long Night. And he is an ancient enemy. Creatures of ice, that bring only death. The others, White Walkers, and their leader, Night King. A collective gasp went through the Targaryen side of the table. Their faces, already pale, turned ashen. The ancient enemy. The others. These were mere myths, bedtime stories for children. Yet, their king's fear was undeniable. Queen Alysanne, Maekar added, his voice tinged with a distant horror, with her dragon Silverwing, tried to cross the wall. To see what truly lay beyond. But Silverwing refused. She would not go north. A dragon, a creature of fire, recoiled from what lay beyond the wall. It was a sign. The words hung in the air, chilling the chamber more effectively than any northern wind. 10 dragon riders, powerful, confident, suddenly faced with a threat that even their ancient beasts feared. The very foundation of their power seemed to tremble. Prince Rhaegar's eyes were wide with a dawning terror. Prince Baelor's usual strength seemed to drain from him. Prince Aelor and Prince Aerion looked utterly stunned. They were dragonlords, rulers of a prosperous realm, but this was a threat beyond their comprehension, beyond their conventional warfare. King Maekar, still visibly shaken, turned his gaze back to King Rickard, his voice now desperate. King Rickard, he pleaded, the formality of their titles momentarily forgotten. You know of this. You always have. The North, you have always lived with the whispers. What should we be doing for future preparation? How do we prepare for such an enemy? Rickard Stark, his face grim, met Maekar's gaze. There was no panic in his eyes, only a deep, ancient understanding. He had always known. King Maekar, Rickard said, his voice slow and deliberate, the legends from the true North are clear. Only 3 things can defeat them. He held up his fingers, ticking them off. Fire can burn his minions, which can be provided by the breath of your dragons. Steel forged with magic, imbued with ancient power. Cold steel, made with true fire. We have Valyrian steel, and Asgard also has few magic swords. And dragon glass. Rickard's gaze was piercing. Obsidian. Black as night, sharp as a razor. It shatters them. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. We, the North, are already preparing. We have increased the mining of dragon glass from Skagos. We are forging weapons, spearheads, daggers. We are preparing for the day they come. Rickard's gaze then swept over the Targaryen princes, his voice a low, urgent warning. I know Dragonstone has vast amounts of it. A mountain of dragon glass, waiting to be mined. Your ancestors mined it for tools, for trinkets. Now, you must mine it for survival. Prepare yourselves for it, King Maekar, Rickard concluded, his voice resonating with a chilling finality. We do not know when the enemy will knock on our doors. But we know for sure that winter is coming. The words hung in the air, cold and stark, echoing the ancient motto of House Stark. The Targaryens, for all their dragons, their power, their golden age, were suddenly faced with a threat that transcended politics, beyond all understanding of ordinary warfare. Their faces were grim, resolute. The pleasant veneer of the tourney, of their golden age, had been stripped away, revealing the terrifying truth that had always lurked in the distant, forgotten North.